across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Two minutes past 6. Top of the morning, happy Sunday, one and all. What a big show we've got for you today. Mark Dolan, Talk, Breakfast, and in an exclusive, the man they wanted to interview, Tom Bower, the author of a devastating new book about Harry and Meghan. Is it game over for Harry? Has he reached the point of no return with his father, the King? Tom Bower, live on the show at 9:30 in a Talk Breakfast exclusive. And breaking this morning, Sir Keir cover-up with the Prime Minister who stands accused of withholding details of an Iranian effort to strike the Chagos Islands. Meanwhile, Donald Trump lays down the gauntlet to Iran, telling them to clear the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours or it's game over. And has the president been proved right to take this action against Iran as it's revealed that Iranian missiles have the capacity to reach France, Germany and the United Kingdom? With Iran having the capacity to strike London, has this war proved to be the right thing to do? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile this morning, be afraid, be very afraid. Angela Rayner now odds on to replace the Prime Minister. But is Sir Keir Starmer a case of better the devil you know? And Prince William, the Prince of Wales, reveals that he's not a devout Christian. So can a non-believer be king? My phone number once again, 0344 499 1000. Tommy's in the hot seat. He's taking your calls. Davis is directing our TV output. You can hear the show on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online. The very DNA of Talk as a brand is in radio. Let me tell you, I was a lowly junior producer here at Talk 25 years ago, and now I'm on air. But folks, we're on telly as well, so all you got to do is go to YouTube, search Talking Up, we pop, you'll see Tom Bower, you'll be able to watch Dolan's Dispatch and much besides. So much to get through. Text the word Talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. And we kick off, as always, at this time in the show with today's front pages. And we start with the Sunday Times. I don't always go to church, says William. Prince answers questions about his quiet faith. Now, this is a massive story. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, has said that he's not a devout Christian. The Prince of Wales has revealed his quiet faith and commitment to the Church of England. That's not the same as I believe in God. And I'm afraid to say it is the constitutional duty of the king to be a believer. They have to believe in God. I'll tell you for why. Because the king or queen are anointed by God. It is the higher power that bestows upon the king or queen their status as the sovereign of this country. You have to believe. To not believe in God as king is to not believe in democracy as a member of the House of Commons. It's not going to work. This is a shocking story. The Prince of Wales, the man who would be king, does not believe in God, but his job, when he gets it, will be anointed by his higher power. So is that a modern monarchy? Is that cool? Is it groovy? Is it the future? Is he being honest? Or is it inappropriate for the head of the Church of England to not believe in the man above? Meanwhile, meet Rayna's secret weapon. The Mayfair power player Farah Sassoon, a millionaire property investor, is opening doors for Sir Keir Starmer's former deputy as she prepares a political comeback and perhaps a leadership run. So this is a very well-connected, incredibly rich lady called Farah Sassoon, and it looks like she's going to help. She's going to be instrumental in getting Angela Rayner into number 10. She's going to be Angela Rayner's equivalent of Lord Ali. Remember Wahid Ali, the guy that paid for the Prime Minister's suits, spectacles and Taylor Swift tickets, even though Starmer himself is a multi-millionaire. What is it with these lefties? Why are they all so rich? They're all loaded. What's Tony Blair's net worth? 60, 70 million pounds? Bill Clinton, worth a fortune. Barack Obama, millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. All these lefties are so rich. The irony is that they love to have money. They just don't want you and I to have any money. One rule for them, another rule for us. And if they're not rich, and we know that old Rayner, the ginger growler herself, Big Ange, she's not rich, which is why she didn't pay her stamp duty. Now, HMRC are investigating that. That is something of a stumbling block for her in her path to power. But can I tell you that the Prime Minister's authority is now so shot, the guy's got no credibility whatsoever. Starmer is so done and dusted. He's got absolutely no influence whatsoever. That a woman who hasn't paid her taxes is likely to replace him. It actually doesn't matter. It's not that much of a scandal because these Labour backbenchers, they've got no ethics. They don't care. They want Big Ange in because they want socialism. And even if it's a tax avoider that gets the top job, they are happy, job done. Now, she may be completely cleared of wrongdoing. She may owe the money. But she hasn't got much dosh herself. In fact, she's not great with money, Big Ange, which is why it's a concern that she might lead this country. But she's seeking the help of a multi-millionaire power player called Farah Sassoon. So with these lefties, if they don't have money, then they tend to hang out with people that do. And obviously, it's crazy double standards. Angela Rayner is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. And it is a case of be careful what you wish for. Starmer's terrible. He's a disaster. He's a traitor to this country with the Chagos Islands giveaway, not supporting America, destroying the special relationship with this war in Iran, putting up taxes to the highest level since the Second World War, killing growth, bringing back the old enemy of unemployment. He's doing a terrible job. But Rayner would be worse. 10 minutes past 6, you're listening to Talk Breakfast. We have the Sunday Telegraph. Iran's missiles can now reach London, Israel warns Starmer. Prime Minister's rivals accuse him of covering up attack on US-UK Chagos base that revealed the range of Tehran's weaponry. So there you go. Bad orange man strikes again. Donald Trump looks at what's happening in the Middle East. He sees Iran as a threat to the world order. He sees Iran as the biggest sponsor of terror in the world. He sees Iran as the root of all evil in the Middle East. He sees Iran as the most wicked regime since the Third Reich. And even though he doesn't want war, Donald Trump doesn't like blowing up buildings. He likes erecting them. He's in construction. He likes to build stuff, not blow it up. Trump is a pacifist. He's a man of peace. He doesn't like war, but he's looked at Iran and thought, do you know what Trump is like? He's like the mild-mannered guy in the pub who wouldn't say boo to a goose, right? You know that quiet guy called Jim, Quiet Jim? Every pub has got a quiet Jim, and he sits there nursing a pint of Timothy Taylor Landlord or Old Speckled Hen, quietly grazing on it. One of those annoying people that drinks very slowly. I don't know how you feel about this when you're out on the beers and you're in a group and there's always a slow drinker. It's like, come on, get with the pace, speed it up. It's your round. I don't like a slow drinker. So anyway, you've got Quiet Jim, and he's just sipping on his pint. He wouldn't say boo to a goose. And he's been in that boozer for decades, never had a problem. But at a certain point, he sees somebody that's incredibly out of order in the pub, right, causing trouble, threatening people. And suddenly, Quiet Jim gets rather loud and sorts him out. That's Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't want this war. He's got no skin in the game. In life, you must always, metaphorically, follow the money. What I mean by that, with money as a metaphor, human beings are led by incentives. So you always have to look at, does this person have skin in the game? What is the incentive? Why, for example, is Starmer sucking up to the British Muslim community that block vote? It's existential because he wants to stay in power. He doesn't care about British Muslims, just like he doesn't care about Jews. He doesn't care about anyone. Least of all, he doesn't care about the British people. But always look at the incentives. And old Donald Trump, bad orange man, he has no skin in the game in the Middle East. There is nothing to be gained by this war in Iran. It's expensive for America. They've just gone back to Congress. The Pentagon has said we need $200 million just to keep this thing going. Sorry, 200 billion. Did I say that? 200 billion just to keep this thing going for a week or two more. So it's expensive. It's going to increase inflation in America and the cost of living. It is clearly hated by the MAGA base because he said no new wars. MAGA, his political support, it's all about America first. And the Democrats hate everything Donald Trump does. He could cure cancer. He could bring back The Office and Only Fools and Horses and Little Britain, right? He could bring back all three of those shows. He could reawaken John Lennon from his grave for a new album and a Beatles reunion with George Harrison, and he'd still be hated because it's Trump derangement syndrome. But the bottom line is that it's not popular in America. It's costing America money. It's bringing back inflation. It's a nightmare for him. So why is he doing it? Because it's the right thing to do. Because Donald Trump, yesterday I said he's John Wayne, and it's a Western, isn't it? It's a spaghetti Western. It's a cowboy movie, and he's dealing with those evil Mexicans. Donald Trump is John Wayne. That's it. Even with, he's got the unusual sideways walk that John Wayne had. Well, today I'm telling you that, yes, he's John Wayne. He's also Quiet Jim in the pub, who wouldn't say boo to a goose. But when called upon, Quiet Jim will take care of business. And I think that's what Donald Trump is doing. And now we have the news at 14 minutes past 6 that these missiles from Iran can reach Germany, who cares, France, yeah, whatever, the United Kingdom. I'm starting to care. Iranian missiles have the capacity to hit London, Manchester, Glasgow. Well, might improve the place. I'm serious. These missiles from Tehran can reach the United Kingdom. And yet, our pathetic Prime Minister is still proudly telling anyone that will listen, oh, we were not involved in the early stages of this war. Well, that's going to age very badly. That's going to age worse than Sharon Osbourne, folks. Because the bottom line is, it's a noble war. I mean, seriously. It was George Orwell that said that the state doesn't want you to believe the evidence of your eyes and the evidence of your ears. Donald Trump's bad. This war against Iran is wrong. Well, wait a minute. It doesn't stack up. Iran has missiles that can reach London. Iran is close to having nuclear weapons. They're enriching the uranium, and they've got 60% capacity, which, according to the experts I've spoken to, means that they are weeks or months away, but not years, from a nuclear weapon. This is an evil regime that's blocking the Strait of Hormuz, and this is economics. 20% of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz. We're all having to get up to speed, aren't we, on the politics and geography of the Middle East. A month ago, I thought the Strait of Hormuz was a pub in East London. I'm not going to lie, with happy hour, 5 till 7 on a Thursday. But the truth is that I think that this war, it's not great. I know that. The cost of energy in this country is going to increase. And by the way, it's been pointed out by Kemi Badenoch, who is most definitely finding her political voice, that if we drilled for oil and gas on our own shores, there would be no energy crisis. So I'm not going to have Rachel from accounts saying, you know, all of the problems in the country are because of a war that's about 3 weeks old. I don't think so. We had zero growth and sticky inflation and the return of unemployment in January, when the Iran war was just a twinkle in Donald Trump's eye. The Sun on Sunday, we're so in live. Pete and Olivia in steamy hotel bar kiss, two reality stars there, who are in love, and may God bless them for that. The Daily Mail, Mail on Sunday, I should say, world exclusive, Fergie plot to clone the Queen's corgis for reality TV. What a sentence. We'll unpick that one later. The Observer, the unpopulists, the fading of Farage, how Trump lost the West, UK calls out illegal war. Propaganda from those idiots at the Observer. They are so on the wrong side of history. And what are they going to do when Farage becomes Prime Minister, with these articles saying it's over for Farage? What do they do then? What do the people in Leeds who work for the local council, who have been offered therapy because Farage is visiting the city, what are they going to do when he becomes Prime Minister? It's going to be a beautiful thing. Bring popcorn. Sunday Express, dithering UK shunned over defence deals. Dire warning as weapons firms re-arm countries across Europe. Drone manufacturers are shunning the UK due to government dithering. The founders of UK and European firms told this newspaper, that's the Sunday Express, that they have diverted resources to other markets due to a lack of demand and urgency at the Ministry of Defence. Labour don't understand defence. But they don't understand borders. That's why they haven't stopped the boats. They don't like war. They don't like the military. They don't like our soldiers. They think the whole thing is shameful. They see our military as some kind of post-colonial mechanism. And that's why this government isn't just incompetent and stupid and wrong. It's dangerous as well. Sunday Mirror, Epstein files scandal. Tell us what you know, Fergie. US lawmakers call on ex-Duchess to give evidence. Daily Star Sunday, 1 foot in the rave. OAPs save UK night spots. Over 65s more likely to go out than Gen Z. I'll tell you for why, and Jodie will agree with this, because the oldies have got all the bloody money, haven't they? No mortgages. There's a comedian called Roger Monkhouse who did a great joke about it, because he's kind of, about 60, and he said, sorry to young people, what we've done is we've basically bought all the houses and eaten all the fish, which I thought was a very good observation. Young people, folks, we've got a problem here. Because if young people can't get a job, if young people are overwhelmed by student debt, if young people have no hope whatsoever of getting on the housing ladder, it's back to my point about incentives earlier. If they have no incentive, if they've got no skin in the game, they're going to go for a radical left-wing political alternative. Because if you've got someone like Zach Polanski, the boob whisperer, okay, the chest enhancer, the king of the décolletage, if you go down that direction, he'll be saying to these young people, you haven't got a job and you've got all this debt and you can't get a house. What we're going to do, all those sort of rich, middle-aged and old people, we'll take their houses and give it to you. That is effectively what they will do. It will be the literal redistribution of wealth. So if young people don't have skin in the game, I can assure you that our politics will shift leftwards. Don't worry about Farage. It'll be Prime Minister Polanski. Be afraid, be very afraid. Sunday Telegraph, Iran's missiles can now reach London. Israel warns Starmer. More front pages to come. And one of the most experienced newspaper editors in the country, live in the studio, 6:20. This is Talk Breakfast.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:23, you're listening to Talk Breakfast. Live in the studio, one of the most experienced journalists in the country, former executive editor of the News of the World newspaper, Neil Wallace. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning, Mark.
Iranian missiles have the capacity to reach London. Does this change the complexion of the war and the arguments underpinning it?
I think it changes the complexion of how we in Britain should be reacting to it. But really, it's just part of the same thing that has got Trump as to take this step in the first place, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The idea of the threat to the rest of the world. Because there's this sort of myopic view that this is a little story about the Middle East. It's not about the Middle East. And, you know, a minor example of that is how we've heard in recent weeks about the security services arresting representatives of the Iranian state, acting in bizarre ways and basically illegal ways here in London. Their tentacles have reached out. I was reading a terrible piece yesterday about how members of the SAS, British forces in Iraq, were cold-bloodedly being murdered during the Iraq War by the Iranian National Guard, the IRGC. These are incredibly evil people. Their ambitions, their fanatics is worldwide. They don't see barriers. They don't see borders. They just see they want to dominate the world.
It's a global jihad, isn't it?
It's a global jihad, yeah. That's the reality of it. And the sickening spectacle we've got at the moment of this government, who are desperate to do anything not to offend a minority they think will vote for them if they play soft in the Middle East, that if they oppose Israel overtly or covertly, and they are seen to be taking the anti-American position, it will benefit them in the polls. And of course, all that does means you've seen, haven't you, the sort of toppling of the dominoes on this story, as Starmer started over there basically saying, no, I'm not going to support Trump. And as reality has moved, he's now going to have to get in. We are under threat. Our base, do you remember the one we're giving away? Chagos, Diego Garcia.
Turns out it's quite significant territory after all.
Really? Who knew? Who knew that it mattered? Who knew that it was important? Who knew? Well, actually, everybody who wasn't desperate to curry favour with a certain part of the world, certain part of the community. Yeah. It was as
the hand-wringing apologists for our colonial past.
Yes, and of course, as we all know, the Chagos Islands have got absolutely nothing to do with Mauritius. They're thousands of miles away from Mauritius. They are, in fact, the Chagosians, as they are called, are ethnically completely different from Mauritians. They have no connection. They don't want to be involved in it. But Starmer, because he thinks it's politically correct, because he thinks it suits him, because he thinks it'll give him some imagined advantage elsewhere, is prepared to sell them. And the Americans are going, you're putting yourself at risk here. Trump is saying, beware of what you wish for. And what happens? We now find that the Iranians are firing missiles and they don't care. And if they're going to fire them in that direction, trust me, they're absolutely capable of firing them in that direction as well, which is towards Europe, if they believe it suits them. They've already thrown missiles and drones at Cyprus, our bases in Cyprus. Now, we got lucky and they were stopped.
Yeah.
But does anybody really believe that if you live in the Middle East, if you live in Cyprus, you are safe from this? You know, we know how far they are prepared to fire missiles and drones. Look at what they're doing in Saudi Arabia. I've got a big interest in this. As you remember, my son-in-law currently working in Saudi Arabia, right? People thought that it was just the Gulf states. They've now started firing across over 1,000 miles the other side of the country. And they will, the more desperate they get, the more they will become less responsible. They just want to hurt and lash out. And, you know, this threat this morning that Donald Trump said he's going to attack
48 hours. Clear the Strait of Hormuz in 48 hours or we will take out your energy plants.
Yeah. The problem is the people who run Iran don't care. There's almost 90 million people live in Iran. And you know what? 89 million people of those millions of people are utterly irrelevant to the people who run the country.
It's the same as Hamas don't care about the Palestinian people.
Absolutely right. Hezbollah, do they care about the Lebanese people? No, it's all about the fanaticism. It's all about the culture and basically their extreme version of their religion that they want to force down people's throats. And if you die, well, your collateral damage is fine. It's fine, you'll be looked after in the afterlife. Doesn't matter if I kill you and your children, because I won't have done anything wrong, because you'll be looked after. No problem at all.
As we wake up to the news that Iranian missiles have the capacity, according to Israel, to reach Berlin, Paris and London, as we wake up to the ongoing situation in the Strait of Hormuz, which is responsible, it's a thoroughfare that carries 20% of the world's oil. As we wake up to the news that Iran was likely to have been months or potentially weeks away from some kind of dirty nuclear weapon, we're beginning to realise, Neil Wallace, that Israel and America's war is ours too.
I don't see how the West can pretend, particularly after the events of the last 3 weeks, of how the Iranians have reacted. I don't see how they can begin to think it doesn't affect them. I'm afraid it does affect NATO.
Even to killing the Ayatollah has made no difference whatsoever, which tells you everything about the depth of this regime.
Yeah.
They're like Arsenal, they got strength in depth. They got people on the bench.
Who?
Exactly. Let's not. As a Spurs fan, I'd rather not say the word Arsenal.
Yes.
But the point is that this regime is you know, it's the roots of this regime are deep within Iranian society, within its infrastructure. As you mentioned, IRGC runs the country on behalf of the regime, and that's a military regime, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a theocratic military regime. So they're driven by this extreme ideology that, you know, they're more than happy to murder 30,000 people who tried to protest.
Well, that's right.
Legitimately, they don't care.
No, the IRGC is an army that serves a bunch of radical clerics.
Yes.
That's basically, that's the constitutional setup of Iran. Yeah. And yet, according to Keir Starmer, we don't even allow America to refuel its jets in its effort to disarm this evil regime at the beginning of the war.
And that was inevitably going to fall apart, that position, wasn't it? I mean, this is a much more serious than simply sort of taking pot shots at Starmer. This is
Correct.
About the ineptitude of the British state when you look at a world crisis, because that's what the Iranian regime has been for a long time. And what you've seen is, at every step of the way, this the state, the British government has got it wrong. You know, there is, what have they gained other than to diminish their authority, destroy the special relationship? And then, do you feel safer? The fact of how Starmer and co have sort of stood back and say, no, we don't want to get involved with anything. It's naughty. We mustn't do this. And yet the Americans are fighting on our behalf. Trump is a very challenging
personality.
President.
Yeah.
He has a sort of, as you say, a personality that sort of makes you sit back sometimes. But in essence, what he's doing here is he is taking on the Iranians on behalf of us all. And are they going to continue doing that? Particularly when you get the sort of reaction, you can't even refuel their planes on their way to defend us all. And now we have the evidence that the Iranians are so out of control. Are you confident they won't fire missiles in our direction, not just elsewhere in the Middle East, and to 2,500 miles? 2,500 miles into the Indian Ocean at Diego Garcia? Well, I'm not.
Neil Wallace is the former executive editor of the News of the World, raising an important question. Do you feel safer under Starmer, or is this government a threat to our national security? 6:33, Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
They'll look after me.
There you go. Let me tell you that Neil Wallace is telling me wonderful stories about his family. The guy is so fertile. He's got a bunch of kids. He's got grandkids. He's got more offspring than Elon Musk. Sadly, not his bank balance. Neil, we need to talk about this war in Iran. Has Donald Trump been proved right? Do you feel less safe or more safe under Sir Keir Starmer? Dave in Dorset has messaged the show. Good morning, boys, says Dave. Not all pensioners are rich. I may have no mortgage, but I still am a taxpayer. Dave in Dorset, you're absolutely right to point that out. Margaret, Prince William did not say he was a non-believer. He said he doesn't attend church regularly, and many of us are the same. We still support the Christian faith, and yes, we should do more. Margaret, thank you for that. Sean in Gloucester, good morning, Mark. Good morning, Neil. Every day, Starmer and the Labour Party do something that makes me furious. Not only the lies, hypocrisy, sleaze, ideology, etc., which are harming the economy and ruining the country, but Starmer himself is actually endangering us. I agree past governments started the demise of our armed forces, but it's been supercharged under him. Added to that, he will not make a decision and stick to it. He dithers and has a knack of getting everything wrong. Rayner will be worse. We need to get them out or we are finished. And this from an unnamed texter. Actually, it's Dean in Oxford. Good morning, Dean. Thank you for listening to and watching the show. Dean says, good morning, Mark, and good morning, Neil. Peace through strength. Winston Churchill. Trump is right. Starmer is no Churchill. So here we are, Neil, and the Prime Minister didn't offer America help at the early stages of this war. Now it looks like we are more engaged. Is it too little too late from Starmer?
I fear it might well be. I mean, of course, what we can hope that he continues his history of U-turns and actually, for once, makes a U-turn that benefits us all. Well, actually, most of them have benefited us because they were lunatic policies. But, you know, part of our issue, though, Mark, is have we got the strength, the military strength, to actually make any difference? And you do worry that for instance, our naval power is so diminished that we're not a lot of use. And that's an amazing place.
That's the elephant in the room. This conversation around whether we're going to be more active in this conflict is an academic one because, like you've said, we just don't have the hardware or indeed the personnel.
Yeah, and they're certainly not in any way close to that part of the world. Where are our aircraft carriers? Where are our warships? They're not in the Middle East, which is where they need to be. Because there is a truth at this eventually, is that it will be down to Europe as well as America in terms of patrolling the Straits of Hormuz. You know, that has to be open, and they cannot do it alone. And the rest of the world needs to be seen to be part of keeping those straits open, to say this is inviolable. These straits are inviolable, and we must enforce it. And our issue is whether or not that's as a token, and I fear it may be. We do have air power, fortunately, still, and if need be, that must contribute. But we can't just stand aside and say, leave it to you. I think NATO really does need to step up to the plate, because this is a defensive alliance, isn't it, NATO? Set up to defend originally against the Red Hordes, the other side of the Iron Curtain, but it's a defensive alliance. Does Europe now need to be defended from the Ayatollahs? Yes, simply does. And part of defence is having the sense to look in advance and think that's where a problem is coming from. And so that's why from the beginning they ought to have been involved and bit the bullet. Nobody wants us to get involved in these things, of course they don't. But, you know, this is about defence of the West, isn't it now?
Most definitely. And earlier we were speaking, Neil, about incentives, you know, the metaphor of follow the money. And in politics, you always have to look at, you know, what is the electoral advantage of our leaders based upon their policies and actions. And we've got Kemi Badenoch accusing Sir Keir Starmer of sucking up to the Muslims across a range of policy issues, the British Muslim vote. The Trump story mystifies me because it strikes me, Neil, that he's got no skin in the game. There is no advantage to him of this war in Iran. It's expensive. The Pentagon have just asked Congress for a further $200 billion. The MAGA base don't like it because they were told America first, no foreign wars. The Democrats don't like anything that Donald Trump does. He could cure cancer, bring back, I don't know, there could be a Beatles reunion and he'd be condemned. It's going to bring back inflation in America, possibly unemployment as well. So, so Trump's got no advantage. Why is he doing it?
I think he's doing it because he thinks it's the right thing to do. I think he's doing it because there is a truth that if these fanatics, if these madmen in Tehran get their hand on a nuclear weapon, where does that end?
Does that not put paid to the idea that Donald Trump is an evil monster? If there's no political advantage to this war in Iran and he does it anyway because it's a noble war, does that not essentially disarm all of his critics?
Oh, I don't think anything will disarm all his critics, will they? Because, he exists, so therefore he must be wrong. That there are things in what Donald Trump does and says that I don't like.
Sure.
And many people don't like. But if you look at his essential decision making, and on this in particular,
big picture stuff,
can you really argue with it? And his job, first and foremost, don't forget, is to look after America. That's where his job really centres on. And so he's been looking at what's best for America. And that's what MAGA is about, isn't it, to a certain extent?
100%.
But with that comes that security of the world. And he can see, if you let lunatics like this have a nuclear weapon, can you be confident that if not this Ayatollah, the next Ayatollah will announce, use it? And they really don't care about the majority, 89 million souls in their own country, their own compatriots. They will sacrifice them because they believe that it is worthwhile, it is collateral damage that is noble. They see it as a price worth paying.
And I agree with you about Trump. He does and says a lot of ridiculous things, including claiming that UK forces held a little back in Afghanistan, neglecting a detail that almost 500 of our brave servicemen passed in the course of that conflict. So that was complete nonsense. And we know he's a mercurial figure. He's a headline-making machine. He said he'd end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours, etc., etc., etc. But are we having to process the fact that Donald Trump, this maverick billionaire entrepreneur, has a certain moral underpinning that guides his judgment?
I think he has
a noble war.
I think he has a great faith in his own instincts. And this instinct, and don't forget, in a way what triggered this, or brought it to a head, was the 7th of October 2023. And he knew then that he had to stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel, and he was right. And he has stood there throughout, and he has seen the reality unfold of that Iran wasn't changing its ways. It wasn't listening to what anybody else was saying. They were encouraging wipe out Israel, wipe out, and the collateral damage to the rest of the Middle East, absolutely irrelevant to them. And eventually he knew he had to act. Don't forget, it wasn't in this term that he got out of the original Iranian nuclear defense pact. It was his first term, because he could see then it was a whitewash.
Yeah.
It was a lie.
You can't do business with these people.
Yeah, they're going to lie, you know, and...
Because it's the art of the deal, and he knows who he can do deals with and who he cannot.
And who will keep a deal. A really important part of this is whether or not, if you and I have an agreement, that I know that you will stick by it. And that's so vital. And he knew from the beginning, they're madmen, they're not going to do it. And the result is we are in that place now, because what he detected back then has come true, and would have, it's been happening throughout the rules of presidents, of Obama, of Biden, and they basically stood there and did nothing.
6:45 Talk Breakfast. Breaking this morning, Angela Rayner now the odds-on favourite to replace the Prime Minister. But will Rayner be worse than Starmer? This is Talk Breakfast. Donald Trump has a plan post-war.
A couple of weeks ago, when he started this off, he made a speech saying help would be on the way for the people. There was going to be regime change.
He appointed Mandelson against advice. We know this to be true. If this was a Conservative Prime Minister, the wider left would be absolutely screaming for his resignation.
Government's announced this afternoon, we're setting up a people's panel to work out exactly how you want us to roll out these digital IDs. We don't want them.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Lovely to have your company. 6:47 in a Talk Breakfast exclusive. Tom Bower live at 9:30. Britain's most feared biographer. He's written a devastating book about Harry and Meghan, and he'll be taking your calls, and I'll be putting lots of important questions to him at 9:30 a.m. And Dolan's dispatch. Be afraid. Be very afraid. Old Angela Rayner herself, Big Ant, the Ginger Growler, is now odds-on favourite to replace the Prime Minister. But would Rayner be worse than Starmer? Live in the studio at 6:47 is Neil Wallace, the former executive editor of The Sun on Sunday. Neil, Angela Rayner, is that a case of be careful what you wish for?
Oh, gosh, yes. Oh, what on earth is going to happen then? I mean, this is the great catch-22 all as great citizens of this country, of this great country, are in. Starmer is just appalling. But Angela Rayner, the tax dodger, sorry, I'm not allowed to say that.
Alleged.
The alleged tax
There's a
dodger.
mystery about whether the Housing Secretary paid her stamp duty, which is an amazing sentence in and of itself.
It's an incredible thing to say. I mean, I tell you what else I thought, how fascinating it was that the Labour Party paid for her legal advice about whether or not she should have paid the tax. Nobody paid it for me when I was trying to work out what tax I should be paying. I mean, the Labour Party paying. Well, thank goodness it wasn't your and my money. It wasn't taxpayers' money as such. But you really do have a reality of if you spend time with people working in business, working in the city. Angela Rayner has had her finger in the pies, all the pies that are coming home to roost. About the disproportionate rise in national insurance that has. I know publicans that are on the verge of closing, and I spend a lot of time in pubs. I like pubs, a bit like yourself.
Most definitely. I mean, you might be the difference between a pub's survival and its collapse, Neil, I've got to say. Without you, it's game over.
Yeah, well, it could easily be. I do my best. But
you're absolutely right. They are struggling, and you've got the fact that she was, part of that team that had the national insurance tax rate. And let's not forget, the red-headed Angela Rayner responsible for all the red tape, the workers' rights package.
Yeah, well, and that's galloping down the road about the idea that on your first day you get full employment rights. I've no idea whether this person's going to work out or not. I'll give them a go. No, you won't, because you'll think, unless I'm certain, can I risk it? Are they going to be trouble? And I can't do anything about it. It's such a huge disincentive to employment. It's the same, I'm afraid, with the minimum wage thing, that taking on... How do we get our first jobs when we come out of school? We try this, people take us on to do that. I remember my daughter, she's now 40, getting a job and basically being a runner in a chemist. She ended up as a sort of security person in the police. She started out running errands around a chemist. Would she be able to do that now? Probably not, because of the cost of it.
Because businesses employ young people because they're cheap. The trade-off is they're not experienced, but they're cheap. If they cease to be cheap, they won't get hired.
Exactly. And you give them the chance to grow. You are able to mould them and then decide, actually, they are worth investing more money in. But you don't know unless you can risk hiring them at an early stage and discovering what they're like. Actually, I'm sorry, you don't work in what we do. You're just not right for it. Try it elsewhere. That's a gamble, isn't it? Taking people on, young people like that, is a absolutely worthwhile gamble, or it always has been. But you can't risk it in terms of cost now. You can't risk it in terms of employment rights. It's such a huge disincentive. And that's why we've got over 1 million kids, what is it, NEET, not in education or training. And it's just a tragedy because...
And then they don't get the habit of work.
They don't get the habit of work.
And their self-confidence drops, and they're at home gaming and watching Netflix and probably smoking weed and eating Domino's pizza.
And isolated. Such
lonely and sad.
Exactly. You know, do you want that for your kids? I don't, but that's the reaction. I've got 2 grandchildren. You know, I really worry about
this
where
matters
they're
to
going.
you. You do have skin in the game.
I've got huge skin in the game. You know, I spent last evening with them, and they're a joy. But you know, what is going to await them in the years to come?
Well, let me give you the nightmare scenario at 6:52 on a Sunday morning on Talk Breakfast, Neil, because Angela Rayner's deputy, the so-called dream team, would likely be herself and Ed Miliband.
Oh.
So if she gets in with, you know, of the support of some of the people that might have voted for Red Ed, you're going to double down on net zero, which of course has been horribly exposed in this war in the Middle East. You're going to see her double down on the red tape, the workers' rights package, which this government has sensibly watered down. Well, she'll bring it back to its full strength manifestation. Then you've also got the concerns about the economy. She's talking about wealth taxes. And then another big row that's brewing, indefinite leave to remain. And one of the very good things from this government are the efforts by Shabana Mahmood, the impressive Home Secretary, to double the length of time that you must wait to gain citizenship to this country from 5 years to 10 years, plus conditions. You can't have a criminal record. You must speak English to a very high standard, and you need a decent income. And actually, if you're wealthy and a wealth creator, then you get in quicker, right? All common sense, great policies, well done. Angela Rayner will reverse all of that.
Well, one of the papers this morning has a story saying that Shabana Mahmood is suggesting behind the scenes, if you stop this, her plans to change the immigration rules,
common sense,
she will resign. Now,
wow.
She is...
The Home Secretary threatens to quit?
Yeah.
Well, that's a civil war, isn't it?
Well...
Between the right and the left of the party?
Isn't the one really already going on, and the problem is the left are winning? You know, you and I pay taxes. All the listeners pay taxes. How much of that tax is going on welfare? The ending of the 2-child limit, huge impact on welfare. And did you vote for that? I didn't vote for that. It's one of those things. It's about consequences of action, and that's what we see time and again with this Labour government, but particularly the Labour left, who are the tail that is wagging the dog. You know, they are increasingly the people in power. And you look, Andy Burnham, Rayner, they're all moving left because they've got a rump within the parliamentary party who will vote for them and not the government. And so Starmer just shifts and moves to facilitate whatever is going to keep him in power, and that's placating the left, who are simply then being empowered, and that empowers Angela Rayner.
Now, I've got 2 sons, you've got children and grandchildren. We both have skin in the game. And what we have at the moment is the Ponzi scheme of mass immigration. The reason why I use that term, a Ponzi scheme is a financial structure that doesn't add up and will eventually collapse. That's what a Ponzi scheme is. Yeah. It's a fake business model, which is fatally flawed. That's what a Ponzi scheme, like a house of cards, and a gust of wind will knock it down. Well, that is our mass immigration policy, Neil, because back in the day, we had sensible, high-quality immigration with engineers from Singapore, doctors and nurses from Africa, computer programmers from Japan, publicans and entrepreneurs from the Republic of Ireland. This is high value, premium immigration. What we had with the Boris wave from 2021 onwards was the influx of about 2.6 million low-skilled workers.
Yeah.
Many of whom who come to this country will stay in low-skilled work, which makes them a net cost to the taxpayer because they'll require in-work benefits, subsidised housing and access to public services. Many will also be unemployed and their spouses and other relatives will be full net dependence on the state. That's the Boris wave. It is low-quality immigration. Now, I don't judge these people or demonise them. Good luck to them. We would do the same. But the problem you've got is the business model of the Boris wave. If Angela Rayner becomes Prime Minister and reverses these plans, we could be on the hook, and I'm not exaggerating because I've got the data to back it up, for £250 billion over our lifetime. Because just one low-skilled worker, if they live to the age of 90, the net cost to the taxpayer is £1 million, even if they work. And this is a conversation we need to have.
Well, this is the big issue facing this country, particularly as so many of those, as you rightly say, are low-paid, low-skilled workers who get topped up by the state, except there's no such thing as the state. The state really, when it spends on welfare, is spending the money that is entrusted to them by the taxpayer. And that group of taxpayers who are net contributors is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, not least because the size of the state employment, the numbers of people actually working for the state, continues to rocket, particularly under this government.
You're so right. It's a double whammy of high welfare and a massive public sector.
Exactly. There's so many people. Don't forget, there is nobody. Many do wonderful work, you know, whether it's the firemen or the bin cleaners or whatever, but do they produce wealth? And it's wealth that pays for the running of the country.
And those public sector jobs and the care homes and the NHS, the porters, the cooks, the chefs,
thank goodness for them.
May God bless them. But there are 10 million people of working age in this country already here who are not active in the economy. I would humbly suggest that some of those folks who have stress or ADHD could maybe get stuck in.
But why should they? Why should they? Because our taxes are paying for them not to work, not to take the chance of getting a career, not taking the chance to go out, work, justify your own existence. Because there's no doubt that that's one of the things that work does.
I'm delighted to say Neil Wallace is staying with me. So much more to come. Talk Breakfast, front pages next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
.7:03, happy Sunday one and all, top of the morning. This is Talk Breakfast, I'm Mark Dolan. A very big show to come. In a Talk Breakfast exclusive, it's the interview they all wanted. Tom Bower, Britain's most feared biographer, live on the show at 9:30, discussing his devastating new book about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Is it the beginning of the end for Harry and Meghan? That's Tom Bower in a Talk Breakfast exclusive at 9:30. And breaking this morning, Sir Keir cover-up. The Prime Minister stands accused of withholding details of an Iranian effort to strike the Chagos Islands. Meanwhile, Donald Trump lays down the gauntlet, telling Iran, clear the Strait of Hormuz or we take you out in 48 hours. Has Donald Trump been proved right, particularly given that it's been revealed that Iranian missiles now have the capacity to reach Berlin, Paris, and wait for it, London? Meanwhile, be afraid, be very afraid. Angela Rayner now odds on to replace the Prime Minister. But is it a case of that Starmer is the devil you know? What do you think about this? Would Rayner be worse than Starmer? And the Prince of Wales, Prince William, reveals he's not a devout Christian. So can a non-believer be king? My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. Now, we're delighted to have you listening on DAB+, in-app and online, but you can also watch the show. And you can see my studio guest, the former executive editor of the News of the World, Neil Wallace. You can watch Dolan's Dispatch, and you can see Tom Bower live at 9:30. All you've got to do is head to YouTube, search Talking Up We Pop. I've got to say, I've got the dream team today. Jodie is the executive producer of the show. She's getting it done. She doesn't take any prisoners, let me tell you. Davis is directing our TV output. The legend that is Tommy is taking your calls. He's on good form this morning. And we've upgraded our engineer. Dave had to go. He's been put out to pasture. Wasn't an easy conversation. No, Dave will be back next week, but pressing the buttons is a gigantic talent and a big new star on the show. The fantastic Luke is making us all sound perfect, but I can't do it without you. 0344 499 1000. Rayner, odds on to be our next Prime Minister. Will she be worse than Starmer? We've got work to do. Let's talk. And we kick off with the front pages, and we start with the Sunday Telegraph. Iran's missiles can now reach London. Israel warns Starmer. That's why we need to support America. That is why this is a noble war. That is why it's shameful that Starmer didn't even allow America to refuel its jets at the beginning of the conflict. Iranian missiles could reach London. We do have skin in the game. The Sunday Mirror, tell us what you know, Fergie, Epstein Files scandal. Sunday Express, dithering UK, shunned over defence deals. Mail on Sunday, Fergie plot to clone the Queen's corgis for reality TV. The Sun on Sunday, we are so in live. TV Pete and Olivia in steamy hotel bar kiss, two reality stars who are deeply in love, which gives me great pleasure. And the Sunday Times, I don't always go to church, but I do believe, says William. Can a non-believer be the head of the Church of England? Can a non-believer be king? I'm delighted to say with me in the studio is Neil Wallace, former executive editor of The Sun. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning.
Great to have you with us. We also have, I'm delighted to say, former Conservative MP, broadcaster and farmer Neil Parish. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning. Good morning, Mark. Nice to see you. This is bright and early.
And down the line, Jeff in Hastings. And we've got a breaking news story, which is quite significant, which is the fact that Iranian bombs could reach the United Kingdom. Now, Jeff in Hastings down the line. Good morning, Jeff. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Oh, hello, Mark. Good morning, everyone. We spoke before. I offered myself to sleep on your settee a few weeks back.
Well, I know. I appreciate that. And given the bumpy nature of my marriage, I wouldn't say no. Never say never, no. Jeff.
All right. Well, look, Mark, sometimes some things just don't add up. And the Iranian nuclear threat that could reach London. Now, let's put it. Let me go backwards a bit. I know I'm a bit divery and all that. Look, please bear with me.
No, you're not. You've got your ducks in a row this morning, Jeff. You've had your 3 Weetabix by the sound of it.
I've got a list here for you, mate. What it is I've got 2 terrorists coming at me with knives, and I've got a gun. I'm going to eliminate them. Yeah. So if Iran is thinking they're going to get done. What I don't understand is why they haven't sent the nuclear bombs already. It doesn't work out. If they've got them and they're getting done, why haven't they done it? You know?
Well, I think, Jeff, is the point that they are close to having nuclear weapons, but not quite, and that's why Donald Trump has acted.
Right, OK. All right, that's fair enough. The other thing, Mark, I've got a list for you, mate. Now, as far as the pension is concerned, they should have more money because they've worked all their lives. And, it's time to reap the rewards of their labour. Starmer is very dangerous. We all know that. And as for Angela Rayner, I'm going to show a little bit of my alleged chauvinistic qualities. And there's an old saying, there's nothing more dangerous than a clever... there's only one thing more dangerous than a clever woman, and that's a woman trying to be clever. She is dangerous, that woman, and there's no way. It's like you might as well put me in power, mate, because I could do a better job. I've got a few things here.
Well, look, Jeff, hold fire on that. That wasn't sexist. That was a statement of fact. So, Jeff and Hastings, stay with us on the line. With me in the studio, the former executive editor of the News of the World, and ex-Tory MP and now farmer Neil Parish. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us. We wake up to the news that Iranian missiles have the capacity and range to reach Paris, Berlin, and London. Does this vindicate Donald Trump's enthusiasm to disarm Iran?
I think it does. I mean, I'm a hawk when it comes to Iran, because if you look at the Middle East, you look at all the terrorism that's gone on, not just in Israel, look at Yemen, look everywhere. It is all down to being funded by Iran and the weapons being taken there and given to the terrorists. So I think they needed to be taken out. Naturally, Donald Trump always does everything never half-heartedly. He goes in with all guns blazing. It is, the Iranians, I have to be quite blunt with you, have held on longer than I was expecting. I was expecting them to run out of missiles and drones by now, but they haven't. But I think it is right that we take action against Iran. I think we've been so slow not to actually help the Americans with our bases and everything else, because in the end, the Americans are our allies. They have the firepower, and I'm afraid all that Starmer has done by dithering has actually, given the Iranians some solace, really. And when we finally give them permission to use our bases so that they can help with the bombing with the Straits of Hormuz, then they just say, oh well, we'll retaliate against London, probably against Paris. I don't think they necessarily have that capability, but of course it's right that we take it out if they have. They were quite close to getting a nuclear bomb. You've got to remember that the Iranians say they want to wipe the Israelis off the face of the earth. It's probably not just the Israelis they would wipe off the face of the earth. So therefore, let's be blunt. Take out their weapons, take out their capabilities of making a nuclear bomb. It is right in the long run. Absolutely right.
It's important to look at these alliances, and you could nearly argue, in a historic context, Neil Parish, that in a sense, Trump is Churchill and that Israel is Poland. Because actually, Israel's war is our war too.
Yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right, Mark, because in the end we would be dragged into it because you cannot allow Israel to be attacked. You cannot allow Israel to be wiped off the face of the earth. And you see, I've often said this, and I said this in Parliament, if I had a constituency and I had rockets being fired in from a state like Iran into your constituency, you are going to take action to stop that happening. And I think, yes, Trump is not perfect. The Israeli is not perfect.
No.
And I, much as I love Churchill, nor was he perfect. But he was absolutely necessary at the time for us to win against the Nazis, because others would have done a deal with them. And the beauty of Trump is that he is unpredictable. It is like a roller coaster. You never quite know what he's going to do next. Are there going to be troops on the ground? There probably will need to be in order to try and finish this off, because the problem Trump got, of course, is that he is terribly worried, quite rightly, about the cost of living and about the cost of petrol in America. And that is what the Iranians know, and that's why they are, they're upping the ante. But I think he was absolutely right to do it. And we need to, we've got to stop sort of limping along. Are we in or are we out? Where are we? And eventually Starmer will agree, because he has got very little choice, to be honest with you. But of course, he's making decisions, isn't he, much more based on what's happening within the Labour Party than he is for the good of the country. That's the problem.
Jeff in Hastings, I'll come back to you in a moment. With me live in the studio is the former executive editor of the News of the World, Neil Wallace. Neil, what does Sir Keir Starmer's handling of this Middle East conflict tell us about his leadership and his political skills or otherwise?
Well, he has zero political skills. I think that's now a given. I think what it shows is, it's a cliche, but it shows that he's in office, not in power, and that what he's doing is simply trying to hang on to onto his office rather than take the country in the direction it needs to take. Now, I thought that Neil Parish there said an awful lot of sense about the fact being in power is about making decisions. Being in power is about being in control, and that means facing up to realities. And the reality is that the war that is being fought now in the Middle East against Iran and everything it stands for, and don't forget all those proxies all over the Middle East, is a war for us all, is a war for our type of civilization. I never forget when I first read that there was some Iranian-backed group said, your problem is you love life, to us in the West.
Wow.
We love death. There's the whole issue.
It's a death cult.
It's a death cult. And the Iranians are the worst version of the death cult. Don't forget, we've been plagued with Islamist terrorism for many, many, many years now. But what's the longest surviving version of it? The Iranian version of it. The Shia Muslim terrorism that is driven out of Iran via their proxies. That's the one that's continued and endured and kept the Middle East afire for decades now. And it must be dealt with and should have been dealt with before.
Jeff in Hastings, how will history judge the Prime Minister's decision not to support America's war in the Middle East?
Well, he's just a fool that's gone wrong, Keir Starmer. I mean, I'm not in a detailed mind of knowing exactly what's going on, but we get the overall picture. And when something stinks, it stinks, But I think he's made a mistake. For the money they're wasting, we should be doing more to stop this terrorism and the threat to our country. I said before, Mark, years ago, they're taking over, they're creeping in. They're very crafty people, these Muslim people. I'm not saying all of them, but majority of them are, and history tells you they've been trying it on for years. We're in big trouble, mate. And that guy with you now, I think, what's his name? Is it Neil?
Yeah, I've got Neil Wallace and Neil Parish.
Yeah,
I'm in a Neil sandwich.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Well, Neil, I could listen to that guy all day. I think he's hit every note correctly. We should have been doing more. We should have helped Donald Trump out. We should have made the effort, because if we don't do this and act quickly, we're going to get done. And the only thing that's just come to mind, because, as you said, they haven't actually got the nuclear weapons. So, yeah, stop it happening before it does, because they will do it.
Jeff, we're waking up to the news that this war in the Middle East matters to Britain. It matters to my viewers and listeners, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We have got skin in the game. It's not thousands of miles away. It's our problem too, Jeff.
Yeah, but you know what? There's a lot of people in England, as I said before, don't get a chance to have their say through talkTV, yeah? But there's loads of them out there. And any of you guys that are listening on the radio now, on the telly, yeah, you just keep going and push, because they are going to do us. And I said before, the enemy is already in this country waiting to be triggered off. So, you know, I'm very worried about it all, my old mate. And like I say, Keir Starmer and that woman, I can't think of her name now. Anyway, Angela Rayner, you've got to get rid of them. You've got to get Nigel Farage in it. You know, like I said before. But we are in big trouble, you guys. Really big trouble. If nothing substantially harsh it gets done by us in this country.
Jeff, what a brilliant call. You've definitely had your 3 Weetabix. Please call me again soon. I loved your comments. I loved your list. Worth pointing out that there are millions of British Muslims. The vast majority are wonderful citizens, right? Friends, neighbours, colleagues. They start businesses. Sometimes there are lovers even. But what you've got is an ugly ideological rump. And I would argue that moderate Muslims, a gazillion of whom watch and listen to this show and love this show, need to speak out. They need to deal with their own. So I can say that as an Irish Roman Catholic. The Irish community in the UK spoke out against the IRA, which was wicked and evil, and the British moderate Muslims need to do the same with their Islamist radicals. Folks, so much to come. I'm delighted to say that Neil Wallace has agreed to stay with us for the next part of the show. Down the line, the fearless Neil Parish as well, plus your calls 0344 499 1000. A developing story. Angela Rayner, now odds on to be Britain's next Prime Minister. Will Rayner be worse than Starmer? That's next.
Conflict breaks out anywhere in the world, it has consequences here at home. Talk War is your definitive national security briefing. From the conflict in Ukraine to the tensions in Gaza and the latest escalation with Iran, this is where you'll find comprehensive comment and expert analysis with multiple updates throughout the day. The Talk War podcast from Talk, available on the Talk app or wherever you get your podcasts.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Angela Rayner is now odds-on to replace Sir Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. Will she be worse than Starmer? Here's a voice note from Nick, if we can, Luke.
Good morning, Mark. It's Nick from Loughborough. Yes, I think it's inevitable that Angela Rayner will take the helm, but one thing we can comfort ourselves with is that when she does accede to the premiership, she will ensure that Labour is barred from office for probably a generation or more, because after the next general election, they're done and never to come back in my lifetime, one hopes. Have a good weekend.
Well, that's nice, Nick, to get some good news on a Sunday morning, and you had Neil Wallace chuckling there. Jennifer has a prediction for Sir Keir Starmer on a voice note. Jennifer, it's all yours.
Morning, Mark. I've got a prediction. I think he's going to do a reshuffle after the election results in May. And I think he's going to keep his friends close. And as the saying goes, his enemies even closer. And I think he'll bring back Rayner into the main cabinet. He'll have a little reshuffle like he does. But Starmer is not going to go anywhere. He is not going anywhere. That's just my prediction. Thanks, Mark.
Well, thank you very much for that, Jennifer. That is also the view of Neil Wallace, I think, who joins me in the studio. Is that right? Do you think we might be stuck with Starmer, Neil?
Can I just say, what great voice notes they were, weren't they?
The best.
Intelligent, thoughtful, cut to the chase, and spot on both times. No, I was saying to you earlier, wasn't I, that there is a split in the Labour Party now. There are people who are to move to the left and are leaping around Angela Rayner, who's seeking a moment and thinks she can get it. There are others who are far more pragmatic about it, who know that that will be an utter disaster. So my prediction, I'm afraid, and you know, there's not many in front of me when it comes to their disdain of Keir Starmer, is I think Starmer's the election results in May are now built in. They're priced in. They're expecting disaster.
So it won't be a story.
It will be a story, but it won't happen. Starmer will not go. I hope to goodness I'm talking nonsense. I hope to goodness that I'm proved completely wrong. But my prediction is we're stuck with him. And I think the last lady there had a very, very insightful take on that. Very good.
Well, someone that's always got a great take is the brilliant Neil Parish, who is a former Conservative MP and now farmer. Neil, you know the inner workings of Parliament, the machinations of the House of Commons better than most. You sat as a Conservative MP for many years. How do you see this playing out? Angela Rayner now odds on to replace the Prime Minister. Do you see that happening after May?
I'm not a Catholic, but I will cross myself at this stage because I believe that it would be horrendous for the country, and I agree absolutely with Neil Wallace. I think also the Labour Party has a very complex system of getting rid of their leaders. You know, the Tory Party, for all its faults, is very clinical and can get rid of the leader possibly almost too easily. And so Starmer will hang on. I was talking to a lady barrister the other day. We're having Sue and I were having dinner with this couple, and she was saying that Starmer is very, very stubborn, and he will hang on like mad. You know, doing his legal career, that's exactly what he was like. And I don't think he's going anywhere. And I think the Labour Party is doomed, really. They're doomed if they do, and they're doomed if they don't. I think the system, Starmer will try and shore his place up. And I think he will hang on. I think it's terrible for the country because they're just making things worse all the time. And of course, if Rayner was to get in, she would pursue this sort of drive on the so-called rich, and then just drive the capital out of the country, drive business out of the country, and she will carry on where Reeves has left off. Because, you see, you can't blame the government for the situation in the Middle East other than the way they've handled it, not for the economic situation. But, of course, what you can blame the government for is that they've slowed the economy by at least 3 or 4 percentage points because of the way they've taxed business and employment, and you've got unemployment rising. So, you know, they have made such a bad job of government in the first 18 months, not a bit more, 20 months, and so they've just got us in such a terrible situation. And of course, if Rayner came in, there'd be talk of the wealth tax, there'd be more taxes on business, and you would just drive business away from this country. You see, entrepreneur spirit is about building up a business and putting your heart and soul into it. And the trouble is, the policies that is pursued by this government is quite the reverse. And then they just you put up the cost of employment, and then you being in a complex system of trying to get people, employers to take on young people. For goodness sake, keep the cost of employment down, and the employers will take on those young people. I mean, it's such basic economics that I can't believe that I'm here looking at it. You know, sometimes, you know, was it Victor Meldrew used to say, I don't believe it. And I sit there sometimes thinking, I'm Victor Meldrew. I don't believe that they could be so crass is what they're doing, because it's beyond politics now for me. It is about this country, and it's about the fact that, you know, we have got a government that is incapable of running the country. And of course, you see, whatever they do now is that they target support, you know, which is good in some ways, but, you know, like on the energy crisis, they're going to target it. But of course, what you're doing is you're dividing society all the time, because those on benefits, those getting support will get more support, and those just above benefit who are still struggling and working hard will not get any support. And it's a very divisive government, actually, for a Labour Party that's supposed to be about bringing the country together. I don't think I've ever seen a party divide the country so successfully in such a short time.
Neil Parish, I'd love to ask you if you'd stay over the break. Are you able to do that, or have you got? Are the cows going to be all right?
Yeah, they some of them have gone out to grass already, and then the little ones are waiting for their feed, and they'll be complaining to their union when I get over there that I've been late this morning. But don't worry, they'll be all right.
Good.
Mark.
Well, in that case, stick around with us so that you can talk bull after the break. Neil Wallace, what a brilliant conversation we've had this morning. You think perhaps we're stuck with Starmer. If Rayner does replace him, will she be worse?
Gosh, yes. God, what a daft question. Of course she will.
Because her backers think she'll actually rescue the whole project. That's why they might replace Starmer, is the hope of a kind of shock to the system, a kick up the backside, someone that's a Heineken politician, Neil, that reaches the parts others don't.
Well, I think she'll certainly reach the parts others don't, but it's in the wrong direction. She's reaching in the wrong direction. You know, we know pretty much everything that Angela Rayner would do, and she is pandering to the left. She is pandering to the ethnic vote. She is pandering. Remember, she's the person who's driven Shabana Mahmood to the point where in the papers today she's threatening to resign because Angela Rayner is leading this rebellion against her anti-immigration moves. Angela Rayner cares about Angela Rayner even more than Keir Starmer cares about Keir Starmer. Nothing will be safe. It will all go to hell in a handcart, and I hate to be a Jeremiah, but she will be an absolute disaster.
Is there an argument to be made for Angela Rayner that she's a better politician than Sir Keir Starmer, that she's feisty, that she's got that Boris quality, she's a populist, she'll get the base engaged, and that she's got more skill politically than the PM?
Well, that's a very, very astute point, and particularly when you consider how scared Labour are about Zach Palance and the Green Party.
Yeah.
Now, to you and I, and to very many people, they appear to be absolute madmen wanting to legalise Class A drugs, wanting to give prisoners the vote, wanting to open the doors and say to anybody who wants to come in, come in. They would be an absolute disaster. But you know what? That people are so disenchanted with the Labour Party as it is that Zach Palance is now third in the polls. You know, that's a really, really scary prospect, isn't it?
It is.
So, you know, if on the one hand it's Zach Palance, on the other hand it's Angela Rayner, you know, you can see there is a real danger here.
A quick word before you go, Neil, on tube drivers in London with quite extraordinary pay demands, which I think will have people spitting their coffee out this morning. Would you believe that it now looks, I think it's in the Sunday Telegraph, which is a great paper today, I have to tell you, recommend today's Sunday Telegraph. The newsroom will welcome that approbation from the former editor of the News of the World, executive editor. That's high praise. They've got a great story on page 2. Tube drivers in line for £43 per hour for a 30-odd-hour week, 33-hour week, I think it is. That's their latest demand. And the truth is that Sadiq Khan and the Labour Party running London fold every time the tube drivers demand more. 43, that's more than surgeons get. This is absolutely ridiculous. And what do? Of course, I don't want to diminish the work they do. No, it's a really important job. But £43 an hour? Correct. Unbelievable. To press a button. Well, to hold a button down, actually. That's what they do in the... Now, look, I live in London, you live in London. The tube system is a sensation. But really, they're holding the public to ransom here. £43 an hour is simply lunatic. There is no productivity in the sense that they produce and they carry the people around London, but the power they've got, as in shifting people, getting people to work, really gives them no right to hold the country, the capital, to ransom like this. It's an amazing story. My deep thanks to Fleet Street legend, the former executive editor of the News of the World, the one and only Neil Wallace, and he's getting so many messages in. People are loving your work. We'd love to have you back at the earliest opportunity. Neil Wallace, former editor, executive editor at the News of the World. 7:35, Neil Wallace, ex-Tory MP and now farmer, is with us down the line. A simple question. Angela Rayner, odds on her to replace the Prime Minister. Will she be worse than Starmer? This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast, and I'm excited to say that at 9:30 we have a Talk Breakfast exclusive. It's the interview they all wanted. Tom Bower, the author of a devastating new book about Harry and Meghan, live at 9:30. But what about this? We're waking up to the news that is Iranian missiles could reach the United Kingdom. Does this now justify the war? Does this now shame the Prime Minister for not supporting America at the early stages? Here's a voice note from Christopher.
Morning, Mark. Morning, Neil. Fantastic start to the show. Neil, you summed it all up so well, better than any politician ever has. The one thing that people seem to have forgotten, even Germany closed the Blue Mosque, the Iranian mosque, several months ago because of the threats. The Germans are acting faster than us.
Neil Wallace, thank you for that brilliant voice note, Christopher. Neil Wallace has just left the studio. Neil Parish is down the line, former Tory MP and farmer as we speak. And Neil Parish, what do you make of how this war is playing out in Iran? Some people, even on the political right, think that Donald Trump made a mistake opening this can of worms. What do you think?
I mean, I'm not as confident, I'll be quite blunt with you, Mark. I'm not as confident as I was, because I was gun-ho when he took on Iran. I thought, yeah, let's sort them out once and for all, stop them, funding all the terrorism across the Middle East. This will be a good job, stop the nuclear threat. But they are hanging on hard there. But he has got no choice now, and we've got no choice but to finish the job. Now, the problem I have is, will he? Will he get frit, as Margaret Thatcher used to say, and decide that the cost of filling up your gas in your car in America will be too expensive, and he's got midterm elections. And so I just hope that he does finish the job. I think there will need to be boots on the ground in order to finish the job. It will be risky because you put American lives, servicemen at risk as soon as you do that. But he has started something now, and he needs to finish it. And he needs to make sure that he finishes it on American and Israeli terms, not on Iran's terms. And it is a dangerous place we are at the moment. And like I said, the Iranians know that by hitting gas and oil, by stopping the Straits of Hormuz, they know that they have a stranglehold on quite a 20 to 30% of the world's oil, and that is the problem we face. But I think he's in there now. He's jumped into the swimming pool. He's in the deep end, and he's got to swim out, because otherwise, whatever happens, Iran will be hugely weakened, and it will be. But you see, the trouble is the regime will still be in place. And the Iranian people will suffer even further. The economy in Iran will be shattered. But of course, as far as the Iranians are concerned, and as far as the regime is concerned, they will have held out against America and all the great might, and they will make the most of it. And so now is the moment to test Donald Trump. I also think, to repeat what we've said, I think Keir Starmer needs to get firmly behind what the Americans and Israelis are doing, because now it's a case, let's, finish the job in Iran properly, and let's not have a problem with them for a generation to come. And that's what we want. But I'm always nervous about Donald, because he is so unpredictable. He could go in and keep going in with all guns blazing, or he could suddenly stop. And I think that's the problem we have now.
Briefly, Neil Parish, with the benefit of hindsight, was it a mistake for Trump to go in?
I think he should have planned it better, and I think he should have known more about their capabilities of stopping the Straits of Hormuz. And I think he didn't really work out the stranglehold they would have on oil and oil production. And I think that is where and I think we did, all of us, and me included, we underestimated the amount the Iranians could fight back. So I think, if he is wise now, and it's a dangerous, I can understand it's a dangerous decision, like that he needs to actually put some troops on the ground and sort them out once and for all. I mean, the Israelis are up for it, as always, because if you're being threatened all the time, having missiles into your country, you want to sort it out. And the Iranians are very, very efficient. They may be, I don't agree with everything they do, but they are very good at what they do. And so if I was him, I would use the Israelis' expertise and I would sort this out once and for all. But I don't know what Donald Trump will do. I suppose in some ways that's an ace card he has up his sleeve. But when you're watching it and supporting America, you do have fears of where it might lead.
I think it's very courageous, and I think it's impressive that Trump has done this, Neil, given the fact that there is no electoral advantage in the United States for doing this. It's not popular, including among his MAGA base. This would suggest that Trump has made a moral judgment about this regime and the fact that it's got to go.
I do, and I think he is close to Netanyahu. I think he's close to the Israelis. I've been a conservative friend of Israel for many years, so therefore I think it is very it's great that what he is doing. It's funny enough, you make the point, because I mean when he ran for second office, he was saying that he was not going to get himself involved in foreign wars, and that's exactly what he's done. I just hope that he has the that moral fortitude to see the thing through and doesn't get worried about cost of fuel and everything else in America, and that's where. But I don't think he's got any choice now. I think he's got to move forward, because otherwise he will lose total credibility. And I think what he has done, and the Israelis along with them, is they've weakened Iran for many, many years. And so therefore, whatever happens or whatever is said, at the end of the day, the Iranian economy is all but broken. And I think that will slow them down and stop them supplying terrorism across the Middle East for hopefully a generation. But as we all know, Mark, time will tell, will it not?
Most definitely. Mary has called the programme 03444991000. What do you make of what's happened in the Middle East, Mary? Does the fact that Israel are saying that Iranian missiles have the capacity and range to reach Britain, that this war is the right thing to do?
Listen, Mark, right from the get-go, I think that the West entirely, that's the Europe, Australia, all of those people, we should have all backed Trump right from the beginning, gone in, hit hard, this thing would have been over. But the cowardly EU and the Western nations are sort of timid and are frightened of supporting the man and are not helping the situation. This could have been over probably in a matter of a short time, but it's been dragged out because we've got the dithering by the Western nations that are not backing Trump, and that's where I think the problem is lying.
And at the start of the conflict, Mary, the Prime Minister of this country wouldn't even allow America to use UK bases to refuel its jets. I know, and the thing is that, well, it was inevitable, wasn't it? With the party we've got in power, they've got no guts whatsoever. But it's not only about this, the missiles as well, because this is indirectly to stop China. Now, China is producing the drones in return for the oil from Iran. And the drones then go from Iran to Russia, and Russia's using those in the Ukraine, and we're helping to save the Ukraine. The whole thing is like a circus, and it's all linked. But if we'd have stood with Trump right from the beginning, I'm quite sure this war would have probably been over. Well, it's a very, very important point. Thank you, Mary, for that. Neil, your reaction to what Mary's had to say?
I think very sensible what Mary has said. I think there is a link between, China, Russia, and Iran, and I think that we have got to deal with it, and we are dealing with it. But of course, we have not helped because we've been so slow to the table. And you see, Keir Starmer, with this decision not to allow the bases, he was always ever going to have to allow those bases to be used. And he's got this sort of typical lawyers speak that they can only use the bases for defensive purposes. Well, how on earth does he know what the Americans are actually using the bases for. And don't forget, they've got the bases in our country, and they've had them ever since the Second World War and before, in order to protect the Western Alliance. And for goodness sake, when there's a war and America needs those bases, we let them have them without any strings attached. You see, these strings are all internal politics. So Iran needs to be sorted. We need to sort of put pressure on China as well as Russia, because all of these countries are very much the ones that are waging the war on the Ukrainians. And of course, while this war goes on in Iran, we've rather taken off the focus from the Ukraine. And of course, they're still fighting, still losing lives, still having the Russian aggressor all the time. So all of this is linked. The sooner we can sort out the Iranians, then we have a chance perhaps of bringing about an end to the war in Ukraine, because so many lives are being lost. So many lives are being lost by the Russians as well, because the Russian troops, their heart's not in it. It's all down to another dictator, basically an elected dictator, Putin. I was banned from Russia from what I said about Putin when I was still in Parliament, so I'm not worried about saying a bit more. I just hope I don't get visited by the Russians after this interview, but hopefully not.
Neil, those cows don't milk themselves. We'll let you get back to the farm. Lovely to see you again. Please join us soon. Neil Parish, former Conservative MP, hugely knowledgeable about international affairs, and he's a farmer as well. So much more to come. Angela Rayner, odds on to be our next Prime Minister. Will she be worse than Starmer? This is Talk Breakfast.
Current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up! I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 7:51, and Prince William, the Prince of Wales, has revealed that he's not a devout Christian. So can a non-believer be king? Who better to ask than a man that spends a lot of time on his knees? Talk's royal correspondent Rupert Bell. Good morning, Rupert.
Good morning, Mark. Not sure how I take that introduction, but...
I think that you're a man of deep faith and conviction. Is there a concern about William? Because to one extent, he's being honest. On the other hand, he might be talking himself out of a gig.
Well, no, I think what he's actually trying to say is his faith is a very personal thing. And he may not be a man who goes to church on a regular basis, but he understands the significance of the Christian faith and to what it means for the royal family, because obviously the king is the head of the Anglican Church, and this Wednesday the new Archbishop of Canterbury is going to be installed officially into her job, of which he, as the heir, will be at, along with his wife, Catherine. So I think it was an opportunity because, as you quite rightly say, there have been question marks about how it is his faith with regard to the Christian church, and being an important part of the role of the monarchy is that moment of being the head of the Anglican Church. I think this is an opportunity to say, look, I may not be singing all dancing when it comes to my faith, but it is very much an important part of my life.
There is a minor technicality here, though, isn't there, Rupert, which is that the sovereign of this country is ordained by God.
Yes, and that is that is probably where a lot of people might have trouble with. But you have to, at the heart of this country, we are a Christian country. Our rules are, governed by that as in many ways, whatever else is going on. And yes, that is part of the symbolism, the ordained by God, but, in a way, just as the Pope is perceived to be ordained by God. So it's no different. But from a king's point of view, we're sort of arguing over words in many ways. But the important thing is he is manifesting his faith, that is William, by saying yes. And I wonder whether some of this has been brought into sort of focus for him, not only because of being aware that he is going to be the next king, but also the fact that his wife was diagnosed with cancer, and that may have focused his own mind about his own mortality as well as his father's. So, and that might have concentrated his mind with regard to what he actually believes.
Well, if you've mentioned the Pope there, if the Pope said that he was not a devout Christian, it would be game over. No pun intended. There would be hell to pay.
Well, yeah, I see where you're using everything here, Mark. You brought hellfire and damnation into this particular piece. But I see, yes, well, obviously the Pope, it's a very different set of circumstances. But the symbolism of the king in this country as being ordained by God to accept his role as head of the Anglican Church. Now, you can go back to the split back in Henry VIII's days, when obviously we split from the Catholic Church, and then you can say, well, obviously they decided they were ordained by God. So you can look at it in many ways. But actually, the symbolism of the king being head of the Anglican Church is an important part of the role of the monarchy.
Well, notwithstanding, Rupert, that I'm taking you through your gears this morning, I actually acknowledge the honesty of William on this one. I think it's the right move. He's actually telling us how he feels about his faith, and we shouldn't punish public figures, particularly the man that will be our next sovereign, for being honest about how he feels. And I think that's very welcome for this very modern royal project.
Yes, and I think, church numbers are falling, and the Anglican Church has had its own issues to deal with. So it's a very important time for the Anglican Church, but I think it's also an important time for William as he comes to terms with the fact that, yes, one day he will be king, and all this is an important part of his role within that when he becomes our monarch. So I think it is an important time for him to just reaffirm that, yes, faith is important to him, but not necessarily in an overt way. Remember, his grandmother was, very, very focused on her and driven by her religious beliefs. So for William, a slightly different, but probably more modern approach to his faith.
Most definitely. William is a sharpshooter. He's authentic. He's honest. He's real. And his faith and his Christianity, Rupert, will not be performative. And hopefully that will be the theme of his reign, that yes, he's this elevated figure as the head of state of this country, but also a real human being too, and a father and a son.
Yeah, and I think he's very much aware of that he does want to do it his way. The king talked about when he ascended the throne that he wanted to, he wanted to pass the baton on to his son, knowing that, it's in good shape, good hands, and that William has worked out how he will be king and work for everybody, including his Christian faith, but then also the people who aren't Christians, and that is going to be something that he's going to have to deal with, as we all are having to deal with changing society in this country.
Rupert, I've got a problem. Not you. You're an elite level voice on this show, and I can't lie. The numbers always bump up when you're on. I think you've got fans out there. I think you're the housewives' favourite. But let's just put that to one side, if I may. I'm supposed to be balanced on this show, and I struggle to be balanced about William, because I just think he's an outstanding young man. I don't think he's put a foot wrong in recent years, particularly that Apple TV Plus documentary that he made with the comedian Eugene Levy. He's a very articulate guy. He's clearly got a brain on him. He's an old head on young shoulders. And so far, so good in terms of his journey to the throne.
Yeah, and that, I think it's very important, bearing in mind what his younger brother is doing. You know, it's how you navigate and deal with being a modern royal. And that Eugene Levy program was a very good way, soft PR, which he's very good at now.
Yeah.
You know, that thing earlier in the week with Greg James. You know, knowing
it was
when...
brilliant.
Yeah, so getting on a bicycle with Greg James as they're raising lots of money, that's very good PR. You know, obviously, you know, it was an easy thing to do, and I've seen him do it before. He is quietly getting on it. There are sometimes allegations that he's referred to a bit work-shy Willie, but I think he's beginning to get out there and be shown to being very proactive in the things that matter to him, which is homelessness, his Earthshot initiative.
Yeah.
Those are things that he's seen as very important, and he wants to not just be someone who cuts ribbons and then forgets about an issue, but actually whatever he gets involved with, there is a sort of purpose and an aim to what he's doing.
Absolutely, Rupert. And I think he's something of a politician too. Do you remember after the Oprah interview with the Sussexes, on his way to church, ironically, he said, he was asked by a journalist, is a royal family racist? We are very much not a racist family. And bang, he dealt with it in a very, very subtle way. Rupert, I've got to let you go. What time are you heading off to Mass?
Well, Villa Park, actually. So that's my church for the day, and hopefully 3 points against West Ham.
Rupert, catch up soon.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 8, top of the morning, Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you for a big show today. It's the interview they all wanted. Tom Bower, Britain's most feared biographer, who's written a devastating book about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. He's live at 9:30. You won't want to miss it in a Talk Breakfast exclusive. And breaking this morning, Sir Keir cover-up as the Prime Minister stands accused of withholding details of an Iranian effort to strike the Chagos Islands. You heard me right, the Chagos Islands. Turns out they are quite significant after all. Maybe not the best idea in the world to give them away and for the British taxpayer to pay for the privilege. Meanwhile, Donald Trump lays down the gauntlet, telling Iran, clear the Strait of Hormuz or we will take you out. It's a 48-hour deadline. Is this the beginning of the end of the war and the beginning of the end of this wicked regime? Meanwhile, has the President of the United States been proved right? And will Starmer be shamed by history as it's revealed this morning that Iranian missiles have the capacity and range to hit the United Kingdom? Turns out that war is not thousands of miles away. So how will history judge Sir Keir Starmer's approach to this conflict in the Middle East? And what about this for a story, folks? Angela Rayner, the ginger growler herself, is now odds-on favourite to replace the Prime Minister. But will she be worse than Starmer? My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Or you can leave us a voice note. You can hear the show on DAB+, in-app and online. Or you can watch the output. Davis is directing our TV show today, so all you got to do, go to YouTube, search Talking Up We Pop. Very excited to say that Jodie is our executive producer today. There's been a noticeable step up in quality, a quiet authority there in the gallery. Not like the hot mess, the chaos under Dean Spencer, who I'm afraid to say this morning is back in rehab. It didn't work out. He fell horribly off the wagon last night. Thoughts and prayers. Our lead engineer is Luke, making me sound particularly gorgeous this morning and taking your calls. The one, the only Tommy, 0344 499 1000. So much to go at, folks. Lots of big stories. It is 6 minutes past 8. And let's have a conversation now about the fact that Iranian missiles now have the capacity to reach Berlin, to reach Paris, and yes, to reach London. Let's get reaction from two very good friends of mine. Peter Barnes, political strategist, and one of the country's most published historians, Martin Whittock. Boys, welcome to Talk Breakfast. Martin, let me start with you, if I can. A delight to have you back on the show. What do you make of the latest developments in Iran?
I think what we're seeing here is the problem of a much more resolute and much more entrenched regime than clearly both the US or the Israelis started this war. And it's quite clear that facing this kind of existential threat, the Iranian regime is dug in, it's prepared, it's got succession in depth. So therefore it can cope when a leader is taken out, and it's not going to go away. And it's also counted on the fact that if it can strike an energy infrastructure, and that's not simply shutting the Straits of Hormuz, it's also striking at the allies of the US in the Gulf, petrochemical and gas supplies and so on and so forth, has implications for nitrates and fertilizers as well, that they can spread the pain globally, and that's more likely to cause nations to put pressure on the US. So I think what we're seeing here is that there was not a rapid regime collapse, although what would have happened then, who knows, but there has not been a rapid regime collapse. And so both the Americans and the Israelis now have this situation of where they have to push it further and further. But this is how mission creep can grow. We've already heard about two Marine expeditionary forces on their way to the Gulf, possibly to occupy Hague Island. But that would mean boots on the ground, albeit in a small area of the ground in Iran. We're seeing something, basically, as always is the case, that no plan survives contact with the enemy. And it's quite clear that this plan, whatever that plan was, has not survived contact with the enemy. And it's proving very difficult now to know where to take it next. That is not escalatory in terms of potential fallout.
Martin, what does history tell us about Donald Trump's ultimatum to Iran that you have 48 hours to clear the Strait of Hormuz or we will take out your energy locations?
Well, the history of Donald Trump suggests that that might not necessarily hold. Remember that the Ukrainian war was going to be solved in a matter of days as well. And I think what we have to remember is that Donald Trump puts forward these very, very strong threats, but doesn't always follow them through. But then remember Venezuela. Just when you think he won't, he will. So it would be a very brave person that says he will simply back off from this.
Martin, is Trump's unpredictability his superpower?
Well, certainly. In normal situations, that is the case, except I think that the unpredictability of the Iranian regime is where rock meets a hard place. They are ideologically committed. They really believe history is on their side. They really believe divinity is on their side. And we are seeing rock meet hard place here, and they're not likely to blink. And I think that is the challenge here for Donald Trump and for Israel.
Stay with us, Martin. Peter Barnes is a political strategist. Peter, did Donald Trump and indeed the Israelis underestimate the deeper strengths of the Iranian regime?
Not at all. There's no evidence of that at all. And we talk about, you know,
they've
the
blocked
strength
the
of the
Strait
Iranian...
of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is a waterway that carries 20% of our oil.
Yes, and that was already kind of covered for if you read the US Strategic Defense Review for 2025. They already predicted this was going to happen. It was also part of the initial initial invasion, air assault plan as well. It's why a lot of assets were put in certain places. Again, this is not an accident. This is not Orange Man bad. This has been a long thought out strategic move, because most of it, if you listen to UK military strategists, they all say that it's pretty much what they would have done as well.
So you think the blocking of this oil route was priced in by the White House and indeed by Tel Aviv?
Yes, what it really is actually, I think this is Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu saying, you can mess with the oil market if you like, we're just going to blow it off the face of the earth. Unlike Obama and unlike Joe Biden, they're not going to negotiate with terrorists. They're not going to capitulate to the mad people. And that's what we have to start living in the world, you know, this real world that everybody else lives in, because most people seem to think that this is also kind of off the, like, shooting from the hip situation. The chaos of Donald Trump does keep world peace. I think you could see the difference between when Trump was in power and when he wasn't under Biden, and they had the fact most of this is ratcheted up because of the kind of predictability of Biden and the US State Department at the time. But again, I have to admit, this is not. Yeah, I do agree that, yes, a plan coming to contact never goes to plan. Everybody knows that. But this is not like some kind of dramatic off-piste moment by any stretch of the imagination.
But Peter Barnes, I want to ask you, is there a danger that this particular war is militarily successful but geopolitically a failure? Is there a danger that what Trump does is disarm the Iranian regime, which I think is actually a goal that's been almost achieved now, but leaves the regime in place? Is that not a botch job? Is that not unfinished business?
Well, it depends why you think this is even happening in the first place, because I'm always of the opinion this is actually about control of China. So from a strategic point of view, this is already mission complete, which is what Donald Trump has said. I also would point out that I haven't seen the Gulf states more united in a single purpose than ever before. And I think that is a big win to take away from this, actually, that Donald Trump doesn't need to stay there. The West doesn't need to stay there. I think the Gulf states are going to take a big role, actually, in the kind of the managerial aspect of the new regime, whatever that may look like. Because Donald Trump, again, in everything that has come out from the Department of War, as it's now called, they are not interested in regime change. They never have been. Why people keep saying they are, I'm not quite sure.
Well, because
they make it very clear that that's not why they're there.
The president spoke of regime change. Martin Whittock is a toothless tiger of Iran. You know, is that job done? Is that mission accomplished if they're simply disarmed and weakened? Or does the regime need to fall?
I think it needs to go. And just one point, there's good evidence that the Americans withdrew 4 minesweepers from the Gulf between summer and Christmas. And that does seem to be a rather strange thing to do, given their importance in keeping the Straits of Hormuz open. But lay that to one side for now. I think a weakened Iranian regime for now will give perhaps 10 years of relative security, safety for Israel and the Gulf states. The danger is that it's not gone. And the other thing is we cannot access the enriched uranium supplies, which no doubt are still buried.
Because we don't know where they are, and we never will. And it's an enormous, Martin Whittock, it's an enormous country.
Yeah, and we can't get them anywhere without boots on the ground. No, special forces perhaps. The point I'm saying is that I think the Iranian regime has to go for the sake of the Iranian people, for the sake of the Gulf, for the sake of the world community. All I'm saying is I don't think the current strategy is likely to achieve that. I think it's more likely to produce an angry, a furious, a committed to revenge Iranian regime that is still in place. And that gives me concern.
Peter Barnes, a military success, but with the regime in place, is simply a stay of execution for the free world.
Yeah, but I don't think there's very much left of the old regime, if we're being brutally honest. I mean, they took out 48 of them on the first day. I thought that was pretty good. But again, when we talk about boots on the ground, yes, special forces are there. What those people have been training to do is actually to go into the collapsed bases after the bunker buster bombs. That's difficult to say at this time in the morning.
Family show, behave yourself.
From June. And that's where it is. That's literally where it is. It's how they've been training. They've that's why they're there. Boots are on the ground to secure 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. That is why we had to go to war. You know, this is not, again, it's not 4D chess. It's just simply reading what is actual evidence and not continually going down orange man bad theory. Yes, it will be a failure if the regime stays, but there's not much of one left. And as we stand, and it is pretty clear that the Iranian people don't want the regime to stay either. I think that is a big factor that we keep forgetting here, is that the Iranian people are rather cheering on Donald Trump in big numbers, particularly those on the ground. So I think we have to keep remembering that.
Martin Whittock, it's important in history, isn't it, to look at the motivations of politicians and world leaders, because of course that is inextricably linked to the actions whilst in office that they have. So can I ask you, Donald Trump, Martin, has no skin in the game in relation to this war, because it's going to increase inflation in the United States. The Pentagon have already gone to Congress asking for $200 billion, which will probably last a few weeks. So it's costly. Much of the MAGA base doesn't support this because they were told America first, no foreign wars. So why has Donald Trump done this, given that there is no identifiable political advantage?
My feeling is there's another lesson from history here, and that is the different motivations and strategies of allies. And we assume that because people are allied, that they have a similar end game in mind. I mean, we know that from the Second World War. That's not necessarily the case. You could be allied with somebody, you could be allies of convenience and have very, very different end games in mind. And I think for the Israelis, this is an existential threat. They regard Iran as an existential threat that goes back decades. That's very understandable. It's called for the obliteration of Israel. So therefore, I think for them, there's almost no price too high to pay. I mean, the Israelis don't want a world recession any more than the rest of us. But I think the Netanyahu regime has decided that there's almost no price too high to pay in order to bring down and cripple and destroy the Iranian regime. I think Trump has, from the very beginning, although mixed, much more limited strategic aims. And I think part of the problem here is I don't think there's a full alignment between the Israeli aims and the Trump aims. And I think there is a real danger that Trump could both escalate in order to try to get out of it, but also could de-escalate and pull away with the job half done. And I think the fact that allies are not on the same page, whatever they say, may also be a factor that we need to consider in this situation. And yes, the Iranian people are desperate to have this regime gone, absolutely. But the regime has strength in depth. Thousands of Revolutionary Guards, thousands of well-armed militia, people who can still cause mayhem on the streets of Iran if anybody were to rise up. I think this regime is far from over, and it's ideologically committed to an apocalyptic view of the world, an apocalyptic view of history. And I've written about that, and that gives me great cause for concern.
Yeah, Martin, is, however, a weakened Iran not infinitely better than the status quo of a month ago?
It's long-term and short-term. In the long term, I say, yes, a weakened Iran that cannot...
Surely it's better immediately. Surely now the world is a safer place, literally in the course of the last fortnight.
As of now, I think it is a safer place. But I think the point was this wasn't intended to be safe for just 5-10 years. It was intended to remove a threat to the region permanently. And I think here and now, yes, I think it is safer, whatever's going on, because it has been severely degraded. But I think in the long term, this apocalyptically minded, ideologically committed to end times type of view of the world regime will remain there. And I think that's very worrying for the Iranian people. It's very worrying for the region. And we do have the possibility, remember what happened in Libya when a regime collapsed and imploded, but there was nothing better to put its place. That has now become the conduit of most movement to Europe from sub-Saharan Africa. We saw the same thing in Syria. We could have a long-term problem here, although there seems to have been a short-term possible solution. And that gives me cause for concern. The collapse of a 90 million population nation, what kind of refugee crisis would that cause?
Martin, given that the President of the United States has precious little to gain from this war, is it for him, do you think, a moral mission?
That's a very good question. No, I don't think it is for him a moral mission. I think he sees from this the possibility to deal with Iran that has basically been failed to be dealt with by successive US presidents. And I think that he basically sees himself as being in the history books now, and he's writing his legacy. I think he's writing his legacy. I think Cuba next.
Wow, Cuba next. Your reaction, Peter Barnes?
Oh, yes, definitely Cuba next. It's always been Cuba next. But what I would also do is keep your eye on China, because what is the actual motivator behind a lot of this is what's known as the Davidson window. That is the time period between the West being able to stop China basically wandering into Taiwan and the fundamental change that will have on global trade. This is why it's so important that Taiwan is never taken by China, because we need to make sure that when we turn the lights on, they turn on. And more importantly, when we press fire on a missile, it doesn't just explode in the silo. The control of these very advanced chips is absolute paramount to the future of the world, basically. And this is why a lot of it, for me, is happening. And I do think this was Trump's big aim, because Iran was helping fund China through its oil productions. Why did he take out Venezuela? Exactly the same reason. Why Cuba? It's all part of dismantling this kind of anti-Western axis kind of powers. But it's interesting how quickly a lot of that has folded, because we were always told that Iran could summon all these proxies and, cause chaos at the mere click of the Ayatollah's finger. And that doesn't seem to have happened. And it is interesting that a lot of big foregone conclusions haven't actually happened, and a lot of things that people think are happening aren't happening. It's very interesting at times at the moment, but it's all about that kind of motivator behind Trump. I don't think it's legacy hunting. I did at the beginning, but when you start to see other strategic moves, I think it is more about the containment of China, because let's not forget, he's going there at the end of this month and the start of next month. So that is a huge global moment that we're going to have to keep our eye on.
Martin Whittock, some would cast Donald Trump as a modern-day Churchill and cast Israel as the equivalent of Poland. What say you?
Just two things very briefly. I think that's absolutely right what our last speaker said. I think China is definitely in the frame there, and that's really, very important. And I think it's also important to remember that this is a moment in history that because of the degrading of Hamas, because of the degrading of the Houthis, because of the crushing of Hezbollah, remember the pager attacks by Israel and Mossad and Shin Bet a little while ago, that's where they've grabbed this opportunity. So I would absolutely agree with that. I think a moment has arisen. The question is this the time to actually achieve it and make it work? But I think the key thing that you remember here is that I don't think that Donald Trump is Churchill. I think Churchill was much more astute to the moment and much more astute to the role of allies. And the whole point of Churchill is Churchill was very keen on building bridges and building alliances. I don't think that really matters to Trump. And I think that can be a strength at one point. America will do what it wants. But it can also be a weakness in the end, because when you want allies to come to your aid, Straits of Hormuz, for example, they are much less likely to do so if a few months ago you're thinking of taking Greenland. And I think the danger of not building alliances is one of the biggest weaknesses of Trump. I think a cleverer politician will put the same sort of pressures on, more of your GDP on military, absolutely. You must up your game, absolutely, but would nevertheless say, I'm still committed to the alliance. I think the danger of Trump is that the America First motif has actually persuaded allies that they don't want to get dragged into things with him because they're not involved. And I think that is a danger, the downside to the, if you like, the madman theory.
Martin, what about the idea, the metaphor as Israel being the equivalent of Poland, and as in the Second World War, she must be protected at all costs?
Right, that's a good question. I think Israel's security must be protected, but I would never say at all costs, for the simple reason that there are many other players, and I think the Gulf states, the Turks, for example, the people of Central Asia, these people are also very important. And I also would name here the Palestinian people as well. So basically, I think it's important to maintain the defense of Israel, but not at any price, because basically, we need to say to Israel that we support you, but we do not support everything that you do. And sometimes friends say to other friends difficult things, like we're not happy about what's happening in the West Bank and settlement. We're not happy with civilian death toll in Gaza. We stand by your right to exist, but we do not stand, of course we do, but we do not stand by your right to do anything in order to ensure that, because you're supposed to be on the side of some sort of moral integrity, in theory, on the side of international law, in theory, and we need to talk very tough to the Israelis, just like the Americans do it sometimes, and I think not give blank checks. And I think that's a very important downside to our approach.
Peter Barnes is staying with us. And Martin, I know you've got to run. I'm going to ask you a quick question, actually. It's the constitutional one. You are a practicing Christian yourself, a man of deep faith, and you're off to church, I think, this morning. What do you make of the admission by the Prince of Wales, Prince William, that he's not a devout Christian? Given the fact that our sovereign is ordained by God, is this a problem?
Yeah, well, this is a bit of a problem that we've inherited. I'm a member of the Church of England, okay? I'm a licensed lay minister of the Church of England. So this is not official Church of England policy, but I think it's a bit of a problem that when basically under Henry VIII and Elizabeth I, the ruler of the nation was made supreme governor of the Church of England, it did kind of assume that they bought into the whole ideology and belief system. And when they don't, that does raise a few questions. Now, I'm not necessarily arguing for disestablishment. You know, I can see my bishop reaching for his phone even as we speak. But nevertheless, it does kind of assume from Henry VIII onwards that the supreme governor of the Church in England, not in Scotland, interestingly, different constitutional arrangement there, but in England, the assumption is that they are kind of committed to the whole thing. And I think when they're not, well, it does raise some interesting questions about the leadership there.
Martin, we always love having you on the show. Thank you for making the time, and we'll catch up very soon. Martin Whittock is one of the country's most published historians. The brilliant Peter Barnes is going to stay with us, I'm delighted to say. We'll also be joined shortly by ex-detective Mike Neville, who, let me tell you, is coming in hot this morning. That guy is full of common sense. So much to get through. Next up, well, what about this for a developing story? Angela Rayner now odds on to replace the Prime Minister. Will she be worse than Starmer? That's next.
welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it. I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, Mark, says Vincent in North Yorkshire. One important thing this conflict has shown is the weakness of NATO and the idea of an attack on one being an attack on all. Our sovereign soil has been attacked twice already. Where are NATO members? The silence is deafening. Putin must be rubbing his hands. Peter Barnes is with me down the line. And Peter, in just a moment, we're going to talk about Angela Rayner possibly replacing Sir Keir Starmer. But I want to ask you a simple question. Is this conflict in Iran a noble war?
Yes.
What gives it a moral underpinning?
Well, a man wanted to blow up most of the world using a nuclear weapon, and he killed a lot of his own people, and we had the power to stop that, and therefore we should stop that. We talk a good game about freedom, democracy, human rights, all the lives that we live. I don't think it's a bad thing when, we see something terrible in the world, we intervene to stop it. Now, that's not always to say that, intervening means militarily. That's a very narrow understanding. You can have sanctions, you can have soft power. There's lots of different ways to intervene. But when these kind of situations arise where you've got a nuclear capability in play, that changes the game, and it changes the severity to which you have to act. And therefore, in my opinion, it was always a noble war. And it's one that's kind of been coming for a long time. It just happened to be under Trump that we're now in this situation. And yet again, I think we keep suffering from orange man bad takes, and we have to kind of move past them, if I'm being honest.
Well, we were told by the left-wing media in the UK and in the United States that he was essentially Hitler 2.0. So when are we going to see evil Trump? Because I'm still waiting. It's been almost 2 years.
Yeah, do you know the guy that brought about the Abraham Accords? The guy who actually seemed to have ended most of the violence in Gaza, compared to everybody else for the last 70 years. Apparently, the guy who's compared to Hitler is more capable at influencing peace. That's quite an interesting take, isn't it? It's just nonsense, and it's all driven by personalities because people don't understand international politics. It's not friendships that make NATO. It's partnerships. It's the fact that we're supposed to have something, they have something, and you agree to bring them together at a certain time. The problem that Donald Trump has found is that he doesn't have partners. He doesn't have allies who are actually capable of doing the thing they say they are capable of doing, and more importantly, committed in writing to say they would do. So, yeah, Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, they have to act rather what seems like a madman take, because the rest of the world kind of just checked out. You know, like I always joke around, we spent more time trying to work out what a woman was than realizing that Putin walked into Ukraine. And, you know, it's just rather ridiculous to me that somehow Trump is continually viewed as the madman and Netanyahu is some unpredictable kind of sidekick. It's just nonsense. And it's just driven by the idea that they have to be wrong. They have to be wrong. And it's just incorrect.
Mike Neville is a former Met Police detective and served with distinction in the military. Good morning, Mike. Is this a noble war?
Well, I would agree. Yes, it is a noble war. Iran is a threat to the world, and particularly, you know, the idea that they've got a nuclear weapon and drop it on Israel would be the most wicked thing. So, I think they need to be dealt with. Sometimes we have these countries which are not just problematic, just an evil source for the world's problems. We saw the terrorism across the world, the funding of that. And as I say, the nuclear threat and what they can do now, their capabilities with these drones, something needs to be done. And I think there's a lot of support for President Trump and his actions.
How would you feel if you were deployed into this conflict, Mike? Would you be motivated to pursue this war?
Well, there'd be desperate times if I got mobilised. It'd be like Dad's army, I suppose. But Mark, when you're a soldier, you just do as you're told. You know, you go where you're told and you do your duty. You swear your oath of allegiance to the Queen or King. You follow the orders of the superior officers, and it really doesn't go into it. You know, I was a young lad. I was sent to Northern Ireland. What are the rights and wrongs of it? You do your duty, and that's what the servicemen and women who are serving now will know what they'll be thinking.
Peter Barnes, Donald Trump is the first person to grasp this issue with the nettle. We've seen, haven't we, previous Democrat presidents actually pay money to the Iranian regime in order to discourage them from having nuclear weapons. They've been a problem that haven't gone away, and Trump has decided enough is enough.
Yeah, as I said previously, Donald Trump decided to follow the old rule of you don't negotiate with terrorists. You threaten to blow them off the face of the earth, and then when they come back, you blow them off the face of the earth. We have to get into our heads that the natural state of the human race is not peace. It is war and violence. 80% of the world lives under autocratic regimes. We're very lucky to live where we live. And those people, you know, I don't blame them for wanting to come here, but also there's a lot of people that want to make sure we don't get to live the lives that we live now. And we have to be mindful of that, and we have to defend that. And we have to remember that freedom is a sacrifice, and it comes with a fight. You've got to, you know, get your hands dirty at times. Peace isn't brought about by meetings. It's brought about by, unfortunately, the other side being beaten down that much that they have to capitulate. That, you know, Europe seems to have conned itself since World War II. That, you know, that it was the great conferences and great speeches, you know, that brought about, you know, the end of the war. It really wasn't, and we have to kind of wake up and kind of grow up. I think we have a very naive understanding of the world at times, and when these incidences happen, and it's very, very concerning, because I always say this is the start. This is not going to end. This particular war might, but we're going to see more of these instances now as we move into the next kind of industrial revolution, the next social revolution, all these kind of things. We're going to see so much more upheaval, you know, politically, socially, economically, that, you know, we've got to kind of hook into the fact that things are going to get rocky, and, you know, sadly, things are going to go up in price, and also people might die, and it's horrible, but it's the real world.
Peter, briefly, if you can, before we lose you, I want to just touch on politics briefly. We're hearing that Angela Rayner is now odds on to replace Sir Keir Starmer as Prime Minister should he fall. Will she be worse than Sir Keir if she's the resident of number 10?
It's like being asked, would you rather be shot or hung? The outcome is still the same in reality. But I will say, this idea that she's actually going to make it, I'm not convinced, by the way. I was with a senior strategist over at the Labour Party on Wednesday, and there's a couple of articles in the New Statesman about this, that actually the internal bits of the Labour Party aren't, you know, Team Ange as much as you would have, they would have you believe. You know, this problem with her taxes hasn't gone away. She's also the face of every bit of bad policy, so therefore everything this government has done. since they came into office. The workers' rights bill, the fact we've no homes, the employment rights bill, all of it. It's just a catastrophe, and it's all being placed round her neck. And I would point out this is exactly what Kemi Badenoch said was going to happen to her when she got the job of Deputy Prime Minister. I'd still keep your eye on Red Ed if I were you.
Wow, be afraid, be very afraid. Peter, another sterling performance. Have a great Sunday and we'll see you soon. In fact, I think, are you joining us for a pint later? I hope so.
I am indeed.
Well,
yes, I am. I'll see you in the pub.
Full disclosure, we're going to the pub. I'm taking Spencer, my amazing producer. Jodie, I hope you'll join us. We're going to have one or two swift ones, in moderation, of course, and I'll tell you all about it when I'm next on air. By the way, a little bit of a complicated scheduling thing, which is I'm actually not doing breakfast on Friday. I'm doing 1 p.m. till 4, and then Saturday, Sunday breakfast, and back to normal the following week, and I'll be with you over Easter. I can't wait for that. But yeah, so the team, we're going for a beer, and I'm going to tell you all about it next Saturday, right? I'm going to spill the beans, because you really see people for who they are once they've had a little drinky, including the brilliant Mike Neville, who's sticking around until 9 o'clock. Dolan's Dispatch at 9 o'clock. Tom Bauer, Britain's most feared biographer, at 9:30 in a Talk Breakfast exclusive. Rayner, if she replaces Starmer, will she be worse? This is Martin on a voice note.
Angela Rayner is dangerous. She's more to the left than Starmer, and she's more for the Muslim vote than Starmer. She's a real danger.
I agree with you, Martin. This is Adam.
Hi Mark, this is Adam from sunny Bournemouth. You asked a question about Angela Rayner taking over from Keir Starmer. Believe you me, I cannot stand Keir Starmer. I couldn't tell you on the radio what I would really like to say. But the thought of Angela Rayner taking over, it frightens me even more. I'm actually thinking we need to hold on to Keir Starmer for as long as we can, because the thought of Angela Rayner coming in, mate, that frightens me even more. And where will we be in 3 years' time when the next election comes if Angela Rayner's in charge? Anyway, mate, great show as always, Mark. Keep going, my friend. Keep going. Keep doing the good fight.
Thank you for the lovely words, Adam. This show is nothing without you and my army of viewers and listeners. If Angela Rayner becomes Prime Minister, will she break Britain? That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Britain's most feared biographer, Tom Bauer, live at 9:30 a.m. So much to get through. We will cover one or two royal stories in the run-up to my conversation with Tom Bauer. And I've got an interesting development with the Prince of Wales, Prince William, who has revealed that he's not a devout Christian. Is that a problem, given the fact that the sovereign of this country is ordained by God? Hev has left us a voice note on that. Hev, take it away.
Hello, Mark. This is Hev from Kent. Yeah, I just hear you talking about Prince William and not being a devout Christian. Well, you don't have to go to church to be a Christian. I'm not a Christian as such. I would say I am agnostic, but I would still live by the rules and regs of Christianity because it is good. It doesn't ask for anybody's death or hurt to anyone, harm. So I think as far as Prince William's concerned, he's just being honest. You know, you can't mock him for being honest.
Thank you for that, Heaven. I do agree. On balance, I think it's great to have a man that will be our next king who is straight with the British public and that his faith is not performative. Pete on the threat of Iran. Take a listen to this. This is a voice note from Pete.
Good morning, Mark. What has always concerned me is that are people against this offensive on Iran purely because it's Donald Trump doing it? I wonder what their position would be if it was sleepy Joe Biden or Obama carrying out this action to stop a rogue Islamic country gaining a nuclear weapon. And now people should realise, yes, these Iranian missiles can reach London. They don't. A nuclear weapon doesn't necessarily have to be carried on a weapon, does it? Once they know how to make one, they could quite easily smuggle something into this country and set it off. I'm sorry, I agree with what Donald Trump's doing, and I agree with the ordinary Iranian people who want to be free of this disgusting regime that they've had to put up with for years. Have a nice day, Mark.
Top man, thank you for that voice note. Is this a noble war? Here's a voice note from Big Kevin.
Morning, Mark. Kevin in Sheffield. Great show this morning. Fully in favour of what America and Israel are doing with Iran. They've needed something for many years. They've been a threat to many countries, certainly with terrorism for many, many years. The one thing that worries me is if Iran ends up going back to something resembling 1979, how will the supporters of a disgusting regime in this country react? Because many Middle Eastern countries have already said that Britain is a hive of extremists. You have to take these people seriously. So I'm more worried about if America and Israel are successful, what will happen in this country? What will be the reaction in this country?
Well, thank you for that. And the last voice note at the moment, for now, is from Damon, and it's about Angela Rayner. If she becomes Prime Minister, will she be worse than Starmer?
Good morning, Mark. Damon from Wigan. Why is Labour doing this, destroying our country? What do they hope to gain from their actions? Britain will suffer for years to come, and for what? What is the outcome of it? I just don't get why a British government can turn on its own people as badly as what the Labour government has. And if Rayner gets in, all Brits will be taken off every list that's going, and all foreigners will be top of the list even more than what they are now. And I just don't get what the end game is with Labour. I just don't understand what they expect to get from this. Thank you, Mark. Nice tie.
Thank you for that, Damon. Well, I think it's a concern. Angela Rayner wants to reverse the Home Secretary's proposed plan to extend the indefinite leave to remain window from 5 years to 10 years. So she wants to grant citizenship to upwards of 2.6 million people who came in as part of the Boris wave, which has a potential bill attached of £250 billion. So I agree with your point, Damon, that Prime Minister Angela Rayner will put British citizens second. But let's get the views of Mike Neville, former Met Police detective. Mike, Prime Minister Angela Rayner, be afraid, be very afraid.
It almost makes me ashamed to be a northerner, to be honest. My grandmother said there's folk you invite in the house and folk you don't, and I think Angela Rayner is one of the folk you don't. And what's interesting is, of course, when Rishi Sunak was crowned as the Prime Minister in 2022, Angela Rayner was very vocal in saying there should be a general election, this shouldn't be allowed to happen because the public didn't choose him. So let's hope, and I doubt it though, that she's a woman of her word and does exactly what she said in 2022.
What do you make of this particular move on indefinite leave to remain? Because if I have a look at this printout, beautifully produced by Tommy, who I will say is over-delivering today and is a candidate for a pay rise, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood's threat to quit over left-wing challenge to her immigration reforms. Mike, I will always praise this government if they do the right thing. This move to make people wait a further 5 years before settled status is the right thing to do because of the costs, because of concerns around integration. Also, Shabana Mahmood is offering terms and conditions to citizenship, including not having a criminal record, speaking the language to a high standard, and having some degree of an income. It's the right move. Big Ange wants to reverse all that.
Of course she does, because this is playing for votes. I mean, they know how badly they're going to lose the Labour Party to these Islamic MPs. There's 4 of them already. Then they've got the Green Party off, taking away this Muslim bloc vote as well. And I'm sure that this Angela Rayner is simply playing for votes. I mean, the Home Secretary, she's come from an immigrant background. She knows how people have got to work to fit in. And so, yes, you're right. She is doing the right thing, and it could go even further, I would suggest. However, Angela Rayner is just looking at her seat and thinking, it's no good being the leader of the Labour Party if I don't get elected. And there's a real danger of that next time round with the threat of these, as I say, these separate Gaza Party sort of MPs and the Greens.
Most definitely. And the other concern is the economy, isn't it, Mike? Because this is a woman who, if elected as leader of the Labour Party and therefore Prime Minister, she'll be having to give the unions and those left-wing backbenchers and the progressive woke membership of the Labour Party, they will want their pound of flesh if she becomes Prime Minister.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I run a small business now myself. You know, I was in the army and then the police, and you sort of get your money every month, whether you're lazy or good. And I tried to work hard in both careers. But what the government are made up of, they're made up of nearly entirely people who've worked in the public sector. There's no one there really who's ever set up and run a business. And what they think is that everybody who employs one person is an exploiter of the masses. They've got no comprehension of the amount of effort, that waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, have you got enough money to pay your employees and the like? And they just introduce more and more regulations which make it harder and harder for people to run businesses. And if there's no businesses, then there'll be no money. They just don't seem to have any concept of where the cash comes from. They've been brought up in this cosseted public sector world where it just appears by magic.
And it's hard to make an argument, Mike, that what this country needs in the next couple of years is more socialism, higher taxes, porous borders and more wokery in our public institutions.
Absolutely. It's bringing the nation to its knees if we're not already on our knees. People looking around and they see our armed forces hollowed out, the police force ineffective, NHS just not doing what it should be doing, all around. And then what the solution, according to the Labour Party, is more of the same. Well, we know what Einstein's definition of madness is to keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Socialism has never worked. It's utter lunacy, and we need to stop it.
And the issue we've got, Mike, is it's my understanding that if she makes a pitch for the leadership, which it's inevitable she will, that her running mate, the so-called dream ticket, would be herself with Miliband as Deputy Prime Minister and Chancellor. So what that means is not just wealth taxes and open borders, indefinitely to remain, the Boris wave, wokery. It also means doubling down on net zero.
Absolutely crazy. At the time, you know, we got this ridiculous thing where we're buying oil from Norway when we could drill our own oil out of the North Sea. We live on an island, so, you know, I think a Labour Prime Minister said in the past that it's surrounded by fish and built on coal. We should be able to sustain our food and our fuel, but this net zero is just absolute madness. I know the sun came out yesterday, but what's it going to do today and tomorrow? We live in a very, very frightening, insecure world. And what we're doing is we're targeting our fuel sources and cutting them off. We're targeting our farmers, therefore cutting off our food supplies. I'm like one of your voice callers is saying, what are they trying to achieve here? It's utter lunacy. And the problem, Mark, I think, is every generation has to vote Labour in, and then they have to realise how bad they are.
Yes, it's the bad idea that never goes away. What is your catchphrase about the left?
They never sleep. And that's the problem, Mark. We need to be as awake as they are, so we can get rid of them.
They never sleep indeed. Well, I'm delighted to say that Mike Neville is staying with us, and I've got lots more to get through. But I've got a simple question this morning. If Angela Rayner replaces Starmer, will she break Britain? This is Talk Breakfast.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This from an unnamed texter. Good morning, Mark. I think Harriet Harman, the leader of the House, has come out against Rayner's reforms to indefinite leave to remain. More MPs should follow suit. Brits will vote overwhelmingly against Labour if they keep privileging Muslims to win their vote. Here is a voice note from James about the Prime Minister.
A very good morning to you, Mark. Now, we have a Prime Minister that is a blatant liar. Every single week, lie after lie after lie. I mean, he knew what Mandelson was up to, and he still appointed him. It makes my blood boil, and he never, ever answers a question. I mean, this bloke, he's supposed to be this high-shot flying lawyer. He's actually quite thick. He's just an absolute gopher. I mean, he's not running that party. He never was running the party. Labour only got in because the Tories were absolute useless, and this lot are as well. Anyway, Mark, enjoy the rest of your day, and a super show as always.
James, what a lovely voice note. I'll get to more of your voice notes in just a moment. They're coming in thick and fast. Luke is doing a great job getting them over to me. Mike Neville is a former Met Police detective. And Mike, a mobile phone containing texts to Lord Mandelson has been stolen. That's convenient, isn't it?
It's very convenient, isn't it? I mean, the phone theft can happen to the best of us. Somebody tried to steal my phone outside Charing Cross, but this will, of course, people will think this is an absolute outrage. A stink will be here that there's something going on. And you remember Louise Haigh, of course, the transport minister who had to resign because she'd reported the phone stolen, and she was found that that was a fraud, and she had a conviction for that. So people hark back to that, and I think they'll just think there's something hooky going on. And when you buy a new phone, of course, some of your messages, of course, are sent across. If you're on WhatsApp or something, they don't vanish. You can still use them. So it all seems a bit too convenient. And I think whether it's true or not, people will think this stinks.
That criminal was rather naive in choosing you as a victim of crime, I would have thought, given your years as a Met Police detective, you're ex-military as well. What happened? What were the circumstances of the attempted theft of your phone, Mike, if you're able to tell us?
Yeah, I was at Charing Cross. I was just, you get your phone out, when's the next train? The next thing I know, it was like a bike flew by, a hand shot out. I managed to hit the hand missed my phone. So unfortunately, got the young lad in front of me. They nicked his phone, and they're out 200 yards down the road. Unless you're like Crocodile Dundee and can throw a rock or something and hit them, they're gone before you know it. But of course, I helped out the young lad, made sure he knew where the police station was, and offered him some money so he could get home. But these people are everywhere, aren't they? And I'm sure many of the viewers and listeners have had their phone nicked. But of course, they didn't have messages on about Peter Mandelson's dubious appointment.
Most definitely. Listen, so many stories that I want to quiz you about, because it's very, very important that we cover other aspects of the news agenda. What about this in the Sun newspaper, Mike? The bloated benefits bill could be cut by nearly £2 billion a year if assessments were made face-to-face again. In-person meetings to decide if someone should get the PIP disability benefit plummeted during the COVID pandemic. And the Tory analysis has found that a person is more likely to get PIP payments if the assessment is done over the phone. This is common sense, isn't it? That the way the public sector behave when it's not their money is quite outrageous.
Yeah, they just hand it out. It's our money that's been handed out. Of course, face-to-face makes sense. And we see this awfulness of the COVID, what's left over from COVID. You know, you see that police officers, for example, not been interviewed in person as recruits, or it's done over online, and all these things over the telephone, doctor's appointments over the telephone. They're failing the public. They're not providing the service. And of course, until somebody sits in front of you in person, you can't see what's really wrong with them. And you can see if they're telling the truth or telling lies, because as you say, it's our cash, but they just throw it around like confetti. And what's really sad is you've got young people on these PIP payments, young men in particular, and we've got an army the size of Wembley Stadium. These young men would be far better served. Their lives would be better if they served in the armed forces or had a proper job.
Most definitely. And what about the issue around Prince William? Because this is a developing story. The Prince of Wales has revealed in a frank interview, Mike, that he's not a devout Christian. Is that a problem, given that the king, which of course he eventually will be, is anointed by God?
Well, I just feel, you know, I wrote a book about the Bible and Freemasonry, strangely enough. So I would say I'm pretty devout Christian myself. I don't go to church very often, but I try and live by the standards. I think it's a difficult. What strikes me with Prince William is he's paid good money to play a part, really. And so an example I always give of him is at the football matches. Now, when George VI used to go to the football match and hand out the FA Cup, he looked like a king and behaved like a king. He was paid for that. And yet we see Prince William sort of trying to get down there and behaving like a middle-aged dad and, you know, shouting and all this sort of business. And my view is, if you're going to be the king, or he's paid good money to be the Prince of Wales, then act like the Prince of Wales. You know, so what your personal views are, I'm not really that fussed about. Just act the part. Be what you're paid to be.
Mike, brilliant stuff. We'll catch up soon. Retired Met Police Detective Mike Neville.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 9. Mark Dolan, Talk Breakfast, a very happy Sunday one and all. In a Talk Breakfast exclusive in just half an hour's time, Britain's most feared biographer, Tom Bower, who's written a devastating new book about Harry and Meghan, joins me live on the show. It's the interview they all wanted. We've got it. Tom Bower, live at 9:30. Was Donald Trump right all along? And will history judge the Prime Minister badly, given the fact that it's been revealed that Iranian missiles now have the scope, scale and capacity to hit the United Kingdom? Should Starmer have backed Trump from day one? And breaking this morning, it's been revealed that Angela Rayner is now odds-on to replace the Prime Minister. But if Angela gets into number 10, will she break Britain? My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Or leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. Well, Big Ange is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch in just 1 minute's time. You can hear the show on DAB+, in-app and online. But if you'd like to watch Dolan's Dispatch, head to YouTube and search Talk, and up we pop. And indeed, folks, you can listen on the radio. Great to have your company. So much to get through. As the saying goes, let's talk. Tom Bower is on the way. But first, as always, at this time on Talk Breakfast at 5 minutes past 9, it's Dolan's Dispatch. If you thought Starmer was bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. Angela Rayner, the self-styled ginger growler, has roared back to life, slamming the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, and her sensible plans to tighten rules around indefinite leave to remain. But as with the modest proposed cuts to the scope and scale of disability benefits by left-wing Labour backbenchers, once again, our useless Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, concedes to a battle because of forces outside of his control, and this time in the form of his former deputy. It says something about the terminal nature of Sir Keir Starmer's premiership and his non-existent authority that a woman who may still owe the taxman £40,000 in unpaid stamp duty, someone who has limped from one embarrassing gaffe to another, is seen as his likely replacement. Talk about out of the frying pan into the fire. Now, a 10-year wait for settled status in this country versus the current 5 is the right thing to do. It's the very least that this government can do to stave off the inevitable collapse of our welfare system and the predicted cost of £250 billion. That is the price tag for settling the so-called Boris wave. But given the fact that Big Ange has called this smart move to make people wait 10, not 5 years for settled status, given the fact that she's called this move un-British, tells you everything you need to know about what kind of Prime Minister Big Ange would be. Cynical, opportunist, economically illiterate, obnoxious, stupid and wrong. Angela Rayner might have a compelling backstory as a former single mother with no O-levels climbing to the top of politics. Fair enough. She's a character. I'll give you that. She's got something about her. She's a headline-making machine. She's trouble with a capital T. She's arguably the Boris figure within Labour ranks. A maverick, disruptive, fearless personality. Someone recognised across the country, someone with a Heineken-like to reach parts of the electorate that others cannot. But there are two big problems with Angela Rayner, namely her and her policies. How long have you got? She has, over the years, notoriously pandered to the British Muslim vote. So expect two-tier Britain, with followers of Islam treated as the latest protected political group in our country. Expect more of that. Expect the turning of a blind eye to grooming gangs because they don't fit the narrative. Expect more pandering to local mullahs. Expect more kissing the ring of so-called community leaders and perpetuating the now hideously empty lie that diversity is our strength. The great irony is that old Angela Rayner is just as politically expedient, just as cynical, just as shallow, just as unprincipled as Sir Keir Starmer himself. She's not authentic. Now, at the moment, she's doing her best impression of Che Guevara, pretending to be ultra-left-wing, with talk of wealth taxes, net zero and open borders. But this is the same Angela Rayner who fell into line with Starmer's centrist dad Labour project before the election. She's just like her boss. She doesn't believe in anything except Angela Rayner. Now, I saw a shocking headline this week. It takes a lot to silence me, as you know. I saw a headline this week, right? Let this sink in. 1 in 5 business founders, 1 in 5 founders in the UK are going to leave the country in the next 12 months. Just think about that for a moment. The innovators, the employers, the generators of national income, the risk takers, the investors, they're off ski. And if you think that they're running now, there will be a stampede if and when Big Ange gets in. But the problem is this won't stop Prime Minister Rayner from cranking up taxes even higher. The left-wing MPs, the union barons and the daft radical leftists within the Labour membership will expect undiluted socialism from their flame-haired prodigy. The left will get Angela Rayner into number 10 by hook or by crook. And let me assure you, they will be seeking their pound of flesh. Life with Rayner in number 10, it will certainly be exciting, don't get me wrong. She's a sparky and spirited personality. She's unpredictable. And do you know something? She'll actually give Nigel Farage a run for his money as Britain's most provocative populist politician. But whilst Nigel Farage speaks of saving Britain, a very worthy and noble cause, old Angela just wants to save herself. Because the great irony is that while she may be our next Prime Minister, she's actually always only ever been a few months, weeks or days away from career Armageddon. Because of the endless scandals, she offended more than just Tories when she called her right-wing opponents scum. She made obscene remarks about her anatomy as she joked to friends that she likes distracting the Prime Minister back in the day, Boris Johnson, at Prime Minister's questions by crossing her legs in, let's just say, a very Sharon Stone manner. It was Big Ange herself that coined the term ginger growler. Luckily, I've lived a very sheltered life. I don't know what it means, and I certainly won't Google it. She was criticised for claiming a fortune on expenses, including wildly overpriced Apple AirPods. There was a prolonged and ongoing mystery about which particular residence that she lived in the 2010s, which had implications for her council tax bill. This is a former housing secretary that may well have evaded the payment of stamp duty to the tune of 40 grand. HMRC will rule on that soon. Like all socialists, Angela Rayner is the queen of double standards. Having condemned Margaret Thatcher's right to buy scheme, which transformed the fortunes of working class people in this country, whilst at the same time, right, she criticises right to buy, and at the same time, she profits to the tune of tens of thousands of pounds from the sale of her own council property. It's a classic Labour move. Pocket the profit from smart Tory policies before pulling up the ladder for everyone else. That's what Labour do. Just like the old expert on long division herself, Diane Abbott, who swallowed her principles and educated her son privately That is what these people are like. Angela Rayner accepted thousands of pounds worth of gifts from Labour's rich donor, Lord Wahid Ali. She also used his $2.5 million New York apartment without telling the House of Commons authorities. So, in fact, if you get rid of Starmer and make way for Rayner, you're replacing one chuckle brother with another, and that is no laughing matter. They're both unprincipled, they're both intolerant to other opinions, they're both greedy, they're both on the take, they're both dishonest, and they're both hypocrites, and they're both a lot more left-wing than they let on. It's quite a shocking thing. The only difference between Starmer and Rayner is that under Prime Minister Rayner, the left of the party will hold the whip hand over the new leader, compared to Starmer, who, to be fair, does have an electoral mandate. Old Rayner will have no such thing. Be afraid, folks. Be very afraid. The ginger growler is back, and her bite is worse than her bark. 9:14 Talk Breakfast. Chris is in Epsom. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, Mark. Great show this morning. Neil laid it out exactly as it is early on, and Peter Barnes again laid it out about Korea and Taiwan. Now I want to lay it out a bit about Starmer. I mean, Starmer's trying to sidle us back up to the EU in a love fest with the EU. The EU have already prescribed the IRGC and others as terrorist organisations, which so far we haven't done. Germany has shut down months ago the Great Blue Mosque, the Iranian mosque, because they knew what was going on. They have trouble in Germany, and because of World War II, they have trouble with spying on their own people. But they were able to do that. They caught them planning stuff, and they've closed it down. Why Starmer is the whole of the Labour Party is now pandering to the Muslim vote. I think Rayner only kept her seat with, I think it was about 600 votes. And we can see where this is going, and it is not good. But I hope, and how terrible is this? We either keep hold of Starmer, because at least we know what a hypocrite he is, and we know what he's up to, and he does, in most cases, tell us in advance. We either keep him, or we get Ed Miliband. That is a joke to think that we would prefer somebody like Ed Miliband, but that would be preferable over the ginger growler. And that, as for Shabana Mahmood, and all I've seen from her is talk. And you've got to remember, 10 years ago, she was filmed on the island of Lampedusa with a sign saying, "Immigrants welcome." So until they pass the laws that she's talking about, all right, and even better ones, I'm not holding my breath. I don't agree with everything that Nigel Farage says, but I think he is the hope for this country.
Briefly, Chris, because it's our understanding that Angela Rayner is now odds on to replace the Prime Minister. If she gets in, will she break Britain?
Well, if you look at what she's already brought into to play as deputy, and she'll go further, and she'll have to go to put off the Muslim infiltration of the Green Party to keep her votes and her seat. She will have to go further, and that is very, very dangerous. And the other thing I'd like to say is I agree with what you said about William. You don't have to. I'm a Christian. I am going to try and get to church today. I've been waiting to talk to you, which is why I haven't left.
Oh, thank you, Chris.
I shall be going to church. Part of the Holy Trinity Brompton. Now, they've opened 186 churches in this country now, and they're wonderful places of community. It's a wonderful thing to do on a Sunday.
And William's just done an interview for those just joining us. Prince William's done an interview saying he's not a devout Christian. Briefly, Chris, is that a problem?
I don't think it is. I think what was more of a problem was his father, whose title his defender of the faith,
yeah,
right, as king, pronouncing in his speech that he wanted to be the defender of the faiths.
Yeah, and that is rather telling, isn't it? Sounds like a surrender to me. Chris, call me again soon. Really enjoyed that conversation. Old Rayner, if she gets in, does she break Britain? Here is a voice note from Eugenie, if I may, Luke.
Good morning, Mark. Eugenie from Bexhill, East Sussex. I think Angela Rayner will bring on the Great Reset, which is the agenda of Labour. That's why they're ruining this country. They want the Great Reset, and then it will be the New World Order. I think that's what it's all about. Great show, Mark, as always.
Eugenie, thank you for that. Many people think that the Great Reset, so-called, is a conspiracy theory. Well, I don't know. Across the West, we've seen open borders. We saw lockdown tyranny. We've seen wokery in our public institutions. Feels more planned than it might have been perceived back in the day. Here's a voice note from, let's have a look. Who have I got here? Jackie. Jackie, thank you, folks.
Hi, Mark. I actually think that it doesn't make any difference whoever is Prime Minister. I think the country is actually on its knees. It's about at the end. It won't be long before there's some terrible financial crisis and we have to face up to our debts. In some ways, I think that's going to be a good thing because in the end, it's got to happen. And if it happens when the next government's in, they'll be blamed for the debts of the past. So I think we're going to have to crash before we actually can sort this out. Thanks, Mark. Bye.
What a worrying thought, but there may be some truth to that. Thank you very much, Jackie. So much more to come. David Wooding is the former editor of the Sunday Express, one of the best journalists in the country, and he's joining me in the studio next. Angela Rayner, odds on to be our next Prime Minister. If she gets the job, will she break Britain? This is Talk. Donald Trump has a plan post-war?
A couple of weeks ago, when he started this off, he made a speech saying help would be on the way for the people. There was going to be regime change.
He appointed Mandelson against advice. We know this to be true. If this was a Conservative Prime Minister, the wider left would be absolutely screaming for his resignation.
Government's announced this afternoon, we're setting up a people's panel to work out exactly how you want us to roll out these digital IDs. We don't want them.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:22 in just 10 minutes' time, a Talk Breakfast exclusive. The interview they all wanted. Tom Bower, Britain's most feared biographer, live on the show discussing his devastating new book about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. But what about this Iran war? Will history judge Starmer harshly for having not supported America and Israel? Here's a voice note from Big Ian.
Hi, Mark. Ian from Manchester here. Let's get real, shall we? Iranian missiles, they can reach the UK, but they would be extremely unreliable, and it's extremely unlikely that they would do any damage. Bye for now.
Thank you for that, Ian. And here's Adrian on the same topic.
Morning, Mark. It's Adrian from East Sussex. Iran and the fact they could hit us with a missile, I don't think that is a threat. I think the threat that Starmer is absolutely cacking his pants about is the fact that we have more than 100,000 fighting age men from that area of the world. We do know that arms have been carried across on boats and bits and pieces. So are they potentially armed? And we have a standing army of frontline troops, maybe 14,000 troops. So if we have an armed rising of all these illegal immigrants, we have no way of dealing with it.
Well, thank you very much for that. Keep those voice notes coming. Don't forget, in just 10 minutes' time, Tom Bauer, the most feared biographer in the country, live on the show. But with me in the studio, I'm delighted to welcome the former editor of the Sunday Express, a legend of Fleet Street, David Wooding. Good morning, David.
Morning, Mark.
Well, has the complexion of this war changed, given that it's being reported in some quarters that Iranian missiles have the range and capacity to strike the UK?
Well, the attack, or the attempted attack, on Diego Garcia, 2,500 miles away from Tehran, in the Indian Ocean, shows the devastating range of these missiles. It's something like double, almost 1,000 miles more further than we thought it could go. And the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, have told Sir Keir Starmer that Berlin, Paris and London are within range. Now, there's no suggestion that they will strike at these cities, but nevertheless it shows the importance of dismantling the military capability of Iran.
Most definitely. Do you think that the Prime Minister might regret his initial stance not offering America access to UK air bases to refuel?
The problem Keir Starmer has is he doesn't believe in anything. He hasn't got any strategy for anything. And he's danced on the head of a legal pin over whether to get involved or not. He's dithered, and he's had one foot in and one foot out. He's tried to show himself strong, standing up to President Trump. And on the other hand, he's tried to show himself being in favour of defending Britain's interests. And like it or not, he's been dragged into it now, because the two missiles which were fired at Diego Garcia and the one at Akrotiri at the RAF base in Cyprus shows that we are targets, whatever.
And Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party, accuses the Prime Minister of an effective cover-up in relation to that effort by the Iranian regime to strike the Chagos Islands.
Well, it seems that we knew about this at the time where Keir Starmer said that it would allow the Diego Garcia base to be used for defensive strikes by the Americans. So did he change his mind after these strikes? And if so, why didn't he tell us about that? We found out about that through the American media when it appeared in a newspaper hours before he'd said a word about it.
Meanwhile, the rumbling civil war rages on within the Labour Party. This time, it's Shabana Mahmood, Home Secretary, versus one Angela Rayner.
Yes, well, Angela Rayner's been coming out the traps quite early now for the leadership battle, which we think will possibly start in 6 weeks' time, when Labour gets pulverised in the local elections. But Angela Rayner held a meeting for Labour together down in the basement of a bar in Whitehall on Tuesday night, in which she basically lambasted Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary's crackdown on migration, saying it's completely out of order. And as a result of that, Shabana Mahmood has come out and, according to sources in the Mail on Sunday, and threatened to resign if she has her plan to crack down on migration curtailed. Now, the plan she has is to make one of the flagship components of this is indefinite leave to remain comes after 5 years in this country. She wants to extend that to 10 years so that migrants can be removed if necessary.
Well, indeed, and I think that it's creditable that the Home Secretary wants to double the length of time that you have to wait to be settled in this country, given the projected cost of settling this Boris wave. I think you're looking at possibly 2.5 million people. There have been suggestions, one statistic, courtesy of the Centre for Policy Studies, suggesting that the overall cost could be £250 billion, given the fact that the vast majority of those coming in the Boris wave will be low-skilled workers or many indeed not working at all and dependent on the state.
Absolutely. And of course, the Home Secretary is adopting a policy which is popular to the electorate, not only to the electorate widely, but to Labour voters. More than half of Labour voters agree with what she's doing. But of course, Angela Rayner, in order to get into the leadership battle, needs the support of the Parliamentary Labour Party and the activists, the membership, and most of them are to the left and don't believe in any crackdown on migration of this kind.
A leading parliamentarian tells the Prime Minister that the administration, the establishment, the government and governments of all political colours have failed white boys in this country. That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 9:30, and a very warm welcome to viewers of the Mark Dolan Show on YouTube, because I've been trailing the fact that it's the interview that they've all wanted. We've got it. Tom Bower, Britain's most feared biographer, the author of a devastating new book about the Sussexes, is live on the show in just a few minutes' time, so stay tuned. A warm welcome to viewers of the Mark Dolan Show on YouTube, which is my special royal channel. Do give it a look if you like, because there's plenty of fun to be had there, but there's more fun to be had in the studio, because with me is the former editor of the Sunday Express and now leader writer and columnist at The Sun, and it's David Wooding. David, can we take a look at our next story? Well, what have you got for us, actually?
Well, I was going to talk about white working class boys.
Yes, please.
It seems that this story has been sticking around for many years. I can lay into a secret here. I was an education correspondent, gosh, 25, 30 years ago. And this story was cropping up then, and it's still cropping up, that white working class boys are doing less well than any other cohort of children at our schools. I mean, 36% of those on white British boys on free school meals are getting enough, getting the right grades, the expected grades in GCSEs.
Yeah.
Now, if you compare that with black African boys on free school meals, it's 58%. Chinese, 82%. Bangladeshis, 68%, and overall it's 65%, so they're doing half of the national average. Now, why is this? They're just being neglected. Now, I would reckon if it was black working class boys who were not doing this well, the Labour Party will be throwing everything at it, and as it is, they're still being failed. This is a report by by the Centre for Social Justice, the think tank. But Lord Sewell warned about this 5 or 6 years ago.
And worth pointing out that Lord Sewell is a British man of colour. He's a black man,
yes,
who is actually speaking up for the plight of poor white boys who unfortunately don't tick any boxes in the kind of Venn diagram of political correctness.
Absolutely right. And Lord Sewell chaired a committee to investigate this. I think there were 10 people, only 1 or 2 of whom were white. They were Asian and black and of various ethnicities. And they all came to the conclusion, we've got to do something about white working class children, particularly boys, who are being left behind. And yet again, this problem is sticking there and nothing is being done.
It doesn't help, does it, that you could argue that in the classroom, you know, all boys are being told that they're toxic, that they're problematic, that the girls are these perfect angels. You know, there's a slight sense that the male of the species has been rather demonised in recent years by sort of progressive political voices.
Yes, absolutely. And there's also a lack of male role models. If you go to any primary school, you'll see most of the teachers there are female. We need some decent men working in schools who can, you know, throw a protective arm around the boys, show them how to play sport and do the sort of things boys want to do. And be on their side, and I think that's what's needed.
Isn't this the consequence of identity politics, that if you make everything about ethnicity and skin colour, well then that'll bite you on the bum, because the story here is white boys are doing badly, but yet the left are deafening in their silence about their plight?
Yes, absolutely. You know, as a
so skin colour matters until it doesn't.
Exactly, and it's always about skin colour, sexuality. Perhaps also gender.
Yeah.
Female. If you're female, white, and lesbian, you probably got more chance than another. But it seems that the main driver of educational attainment is nothing to do with colour. It's all to do with your background, your geography, where you come from in the UK, and your social class.
David, a thrill to see you. I wish we had longer, but as you know, we've got a very big name joining us after the break.
I'll be watching that myself.
Well, look, it'll be fantastic to cover that conversation. My deep thanks to the brilliant David Wooding, former editor of the Sunday Express and now leader writer, columnist and journalist at the Sun newspaper. David, thank you so much for that. It is 9:33. Next up, Britain's most feared biographer, Tom Bower, who's just written a devastating new book about Harry and Meghan. Don't go anywhere.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast, and a warm welcome to many of my viewers on the Mark Dolan Show on YouTube. We've been looking forward to this interview. I'm delighted to welcome in a Talk Breakfast and Mark Dolan Show exclusive, Tom Bower, who is the author of Betrayal, Power, Deceit and the Fight for the Future of the Royal Family, a book that's already a bestseller. It's released on Thursday. You can pre-order now, and I would urge you to do so. Tom Bower, welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning. Thanks very much.
We'll start with a simple one, a nice easy one as a warm-up. Is Prince Harry happy with his new life in California?
Ish. I'd say half and half. He'd love to be able to be both in California and have great status in Britain. And the lack of any status in Britain and diminishing status in California means that I think on the whole, he's pretty frustrated.
We're going to come to the rather perilous state of their respective careers in the public eye. Can I ask for your appraisal of the health of their marriage?
Well, in my view, the marriage is okay. I mean, I think that Harry always needed and loved Meghan. It was a marriage made in heaven for him. She obviously went into the marriage with other things in mind, namely fame and fortune and a glittering career in California. But I think on the whole, they have a good relationship. I don't think there's any evidence that they don't.
What about the suggestion that Meghan is a controlling, narcissistic personality? Of course, your brilliant previous book, which was Revenge, suggested that it was actually Meghan Markle that was the driving force behind Harry's departure from the royal family.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think what I show in this book is, in that episode, that she actually sort of fueled his grievances. What happened until he met Meghan, he was quite happy in Britain. He sometimes obviously frustrated about not being able to land a stable relationship with a woman. But in terms of his status, he was much loved, very popular, and was doing very well. But when she got here and saw what fate awaited her in terms of being number two to Kate and not living in the luxury she wanted and having to obey the royal commands, she stoked constantly that he should feel aggrieved and should feel unhappy. And I think that is in the end why he agreed. And he himself wanted to leave Britain because she told him it was impossible for them to live happily in Britain. And for that, I blame her entirely.
In your best-selling biographies of other public figures, including Tony Blair and King Charles, you've been very unforgiving in your portrayal of these complex personalities. Can you describe the Meghan Markle that you know to my viewers and listeners?
Well, I think the Meghan Markle I know is on the good side, intelligent, resourceful, definitely resilient under fire. But on the other hand, intensely selfish, only self-opinionated, unable to see anything other than through her own lens, as she would say, appalling treatment of her father and her friends, old friends, a very conflicted personality. But worst of all for her is that she couldn't find huge fame and fortune on her own accomplishments. Her problem is she has very limited talent. She isn't a great actress, to say the least. She doesn't actually come across as someone of great warmth when she's not acting. There's no mystery about her. She is just a hugely ambitious, grasping person. And I think that is, in the end, what brings her down, that there is nothing original about her. She's tried her hardest through Netflix and all the various podcasts to be able to borrow a very indicative individual furrow and prove herself unique, and has consistently failed to do that. And the reason why, I may just say why it's so fascinating, is because, of course, they are global characters, they're global celebrities, they've caused enormous damage to the royal family, and we're all fascinated how this is going to end. And that's the nature of my book. She's now paying the price of betrayal.
In both of your books, you paint a picture of Meghan Markle as very ambitious, very fame hungry, interested in social position and money. Are her ambitions at odds with what Harry wants?
Yes. I mean, Harry, if you are what he was, the third and now the fifth in line to succession, and you're a member of the royal family, your ambition isn't clearly material. I mean, he had all the money he needed. He had all the fame he needed. He had the applause he needed. The point about Meghan is she was looking for fame. She was looking for applause. She was looking for international recognition, which of course she failed to get because she had not enough talent. It was only by marrying Harry that she became the global celebrity that she is. Her problem is she can't earn any money anymore. She made her money selling the dirt on the royal family, much of it, of course, in my view, invented, and now finds herself at an unfortunate crossroads where she can't raise money by work anymore, other than tawdry things like going to Australia and this health farm, and needs to find a new way for the rest of her life, a new source of income. Harry, on the other hand, could easily just have returned to Britain and be embraced by the royal family, but I think that's now very difficult for him.
Thanks to the success of your career as a best-selling author and journalist, you're a man of means, Tom. Have you bought any of Meghan's flower sprinkles?
Even I couldn't afford them, and frankly, I wouldn't know what to do with them. So I've resisted that temptation.
I want to ask you about the mystery around her retail arm, as ever, which, as you'll be well aware, is a name taken from a successful New York fashion house, which they were none too happy about. Has she actually sold millions of dollars worth of jam, flower sprinkles and Napa Valley rosé?
No, absolutely not. I mean, that's one of the many revelations in the book. I mean, the jam, which was meant to be strawberries picked in her garden and then lovingly turned into jam on the hob in her kitchen with Lilibet looking on, in fact is a spread manufactured in Ohio, Illinois, and put into a rather attractive jar. We tracked the jar makers down too, and they sold very few of the jars to the Illinois bottling plant and manufacturing. So of course not. That is why Netflix have finally admitted or revealed this week that they are ending their relationship with her, which I predicted in my book. I mean, the book just shows exactly how Meghan's commercial ambitions failed right at the very beginning, because for two reasons. One is she didn't have enough money to launch her project. I mean, you need a fortune. And secondly, the only reason why people buy Meghan's jams and sprinkles and everything is because they love Meghan. They want to be associated with her. And she doesn't have that sort of profile.
Now, the couple have savings, because we know that Harry inherited money from the Queen Mother, the late Queen Mother, and of course his mother Diana. And he earned in the region of $20 million plus for the book Spare. And there was that original Netflix deal. But of course, we now know that the Sussexes have been unilaterally dumped by Netflix. Is it conceivable that the Sussexes could eventually run out of money?
Absolutely. I mean, the cost of living for them is enormous. I mean, the security alone, which they feel they need, must cost between $1.5 and $2 million a year. The upkeep of their home and their staff must cost at least another $2 million. And then there's the rest. So I think that they're running out of money. I mean, I've conservatively put their annual expenditure at $3 million, but for that they'd have to earn $4 or $5 million. And it's they're running out of money because they run out of people to interest to buy their story, and that's why I think in the end they'll be desperate to come back to Britain to revalidate and reconcile with the royal family, which in the end will be the only way they might be able to save themselves. But I think that's a remote possibility.
Is there a way back for Harry in regards to the royal family, his father, the King, and his brother, William?
I don't believe so. Definitely not in public with the King, which of course is exactly what Harry wants at the Invictus Games in Birmingham. I don't believe the King will dream of doing that, not least because there'll be riots from the Muslim population there when the Israeli competitors start turning up at the track. And secondly, I don't think William would allow it. William, I'm sure, and I completely understandably, is not going to have Harry making more trouble in Britain. He's had enough problems with Andrew. He doesn't need more problems with Harry. And the trouble is that letting Harry and Meghan back into Britain to revalidate their royal status will only give them another boost to sell themselves, either in Australia or Canada or wherever, to make money out of their royal titles. And I think that'll be a disaster for the royal family.
Well, I'm itching to read your book when it comes out on Thursday, and excerpts have appeared in the Times newspaper. And in one of those excerpts, you reveal that Harry is very concerned that, given the harsh treatment meted out to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, that he could suffer the same fate when William becomes king.
Well, that's what I'm told, and I do believe it. I think that Harry never believed that he'd be able to be stripped of his titles. And nor for that matter did Andrew, because they were always believed they needed a very complicated act of parliament. Well, I think that has now been shot. I mean, clearly there was a constitutional fudge, and somebody just signed letters patent, and that removed Andrew's titles. I think if Harry and Meghan in any way threaten the royal family from now on, and as they have in the past, William will be minded to do exactly the same, not only to Harry and Meghan, but also their children, because he doesn't need a rival, hostile royal family in California. He's got enough problems to restore the monarchy after all the terrible things that have happened over the last year, and doesn't need more trouble from Harry and Meghan.
And mentioning other members of the royal family, you've reported that William advised Harry against rushing into this relationship with Meghan Markle when they were courting. I think they met in 2016. They courted for a couple of years, got married in 2018. William was concerned about the pace by which that relationship was maturing. Meanwhile, even Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, a discredited man, was pretty smart when he said to Harry, you need to do your due diligence about this woman. Andrew was right, wasn't he?
Well, if the story is true, yes. But I think that Harry did his due diligence. I mean, Andrew is not one to speak about due diligence or any judgment at all. I wouldn't take a word of advice from him. But I do think that Harry, on the whole, was right. I mean, he was a man who couldn't find an English woman who caught up with his depressions, his paranoia, his lack of intellect, to be very crude about it. And Meghan gave him a safety net, obviously for her own purposes, but she really did give him the motherly and other love which he needed and support, and listened to all his complaints and his gripes. I think at the beginning they were a good team, and he was very proud of her. So I think that he chose, in that sense, well. The problem was he didn't realize her agenda, and as I show in the book, which I know is the first time of many news stories in the book, the royal family knew long before the wedding that Meghan was going to be trouble. As I describe in the book, there was a very famous member of the establishment who every 3 or 4 weeks sat with Meghan in Kensington Palace for more than an hour, explaining to her the job of being a part of the royal family. And after the 3rd or 4th session, that person reported that she was going to be amazing trouble and didn't believe she'd stay. So the royal family knew before the wedding that they were going to face a major, major problem.
Most definitely. Now, the Sussexes have responded angrily to the forthcoming publication of your book, and you've been characterised as something of a conspiracy theorist, a bit of a nut job. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, gratitude, because they pushed the book to #1 on Amazon. But secondly, they made their judgment clearly without reading the book. And thirdly, they believe that the only way that anyone can write about them is with their permission, quoting their words. They want to control the narrative of everything that is said about them. These sort of people cannot stand that they can be judged objectively with the facts and the truth, and not, as one says, Meghan's truth, which is very far from what we would call the truth, the objective facts. So I don't care at all what they say. I do care about the damage they cause. And if I may say so, in the book, there's a load of fascinating new material which I discovered about their trips to Colombia, Nigeria, the writing of Harry's book, the making of the Netflix series, insiders telling me astonishing things about the way they behaved and what their agenda was. So when they read the book, I think they'll be even more furious than after having read one excerpt in the Times.
It's my view, having read your brilliant first book, which was called Revenge, that Meghan Markle is not just ambitious, Tom, driven and intelligent in a strategic way. She's also transactional, isn't she? And there seems to be a pattern that when people cease to be of use to her, she drops them like a hot coal. For example, her first husband, Trevor Engelson, who helped her in her career in Hollywood, she gets the part in Suits, $50,000 an episode. He bites the dust. She sends him her rings back in the post. Similarly, you mentioned her father, Thomas Markle Sr., who it's reported has spent at least $500,000 on her education when he was a successful lighting director in the United States. He's fighting for his life in a Philippines hospital, and he doesn't even get a phone call from his daughter. So she's ruthless and transactional. Could Harry bite the dust when he ceases to be of use to the Duchess?
Well, that's always been the view of many people, that she will dump him when he is no longer much use. But she'd have to have an escape route. She'd have to find a sort of a Silicon Valley or somehow aging billionaire that would want to take her on. I don't think she'd walk into the wilderness. I can't imagine any man finding happiness with Meghan Markle. I mean, I think it'll be pretty difficult. But I'm told there are Americans that would find her attractive. She dresses up and looks terrific when she wants to. In private, she is an absolutely screaming woman, unable to control her emotions when she's criticized. Will she dump Harry? Well, there's no evidence that she will, but many believe that it's impossible for the marriage to continue. I think the children keep them together. I think the lack of escape for Harry to back to the royal family will keep them together. But they're under huge pressure now because of the finances. And I think that is always a huge test, a big test on any relationship. So we must just wait and see. I mean, that's what makes this story so fascinating, because it plays out in front of us daily or weekly. And we just wonder, how will it end?
It's my view that Harry loves Meghan, but I just wonder whether Meghan loves him, Tom.
Well, other than loving herself massively, and probably loving her children, perhaps Harry comes fourth. But she needs the prop. The problem with Meghan is that you only get what she wants you to know, other than the insiders who then leak what they see. And even in front of the insiders, she rations their access very, very carefully. Few people are actually allowed to watch Meghan and Harry alone. They were seen in Colombia alone, and there was a big row there. But, you know, these are marriages. I can't tell you. I mean, the thing about Meghan is that she fascinates us because she is so determined, so ruthless, so narcissistic, so determined to succeed. And at the moment, she's on a downward spiral. She's paying the price of betrayal. Betrayal not only of the royal family and her father, and as you say, her first husband, but lots of friends. Betrayal comes at a price. And that is why the book tells a whole new story about this extraordinary couple and obviously their battle with the royal family.
The clock is against us, Tom. A couple of quick ones before we let you go. Another extraordinary revelation from this fascinating book, which is already rightly at the top of the book charts, is that Queen Camilla took the view that perhaps Meghan had brainwashed Harry. What's the story there?
Well, I think that's exactly what I was saying about they realised before they even got married that Harry had become a sort of grievance machine. He had literally turned and changed from being this charming, loving young prince into a person who constantly complained. And that was entirely Meghan's making because she wanted to go back to California. So the Queen rightly said she's brainwashed him.
And then very briefly, you've written a brilliant book about Charles. From memory, I think it's called Rebel King. I read it a year ago. How do you think Charles feels at the moment about his son? Where is Charles at emotionally in regard to Harry, do you think? Because we know that William is done with his brother. There's one quote attributed to William, effing hates his brother. What about Charles?
Well, desperation. Here's a sick father, estranged from his son, clearly racked with guilt about the way that he was treated as a child when Charles was going with Camilla and the marriage clearly had broken down, then Diana died. Unable actually to find a way to solve a problem, not least because of Meghan and because of William. So torn.
It's the interview they all wanted. My thanks to Tom Bower, who's the author of Betrayal, Power, Deceit, and the Fight for the Future of the Royal Family. It's at the top of the charts. Pre-order now. A devastating read. And of course, Tom Bower does not pull his punches. The Sussexes hate this book. That's why you need to